Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. The world has grown addicted to ease. Comfort is sold as purpose, distraction as rest, and weakness as empathy. But there is a quieter truth beneath all this noise, that strength still decides who endures, that discipline still builds meaning, and that the person who does not quit, does not complain, and does not settle becomes unshakable. This is not a message for the comfortable. It is a call for those who still feel something burning beneath the surface, a need to rise, to refine, to take back control. Life is not waiting for your readiness. It will test you before you have balance. It will demand action before you feel prepared, and it will expose every weakness until you decide to correct it. The Stoic does not wait for perfect conditions. They face what stands before them and work through it in silence. They understand what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." That command is not harsh, it is freeing. It removes the illusion that struggle is punishment and reveals it as proof of your capacity. Every day you are being sculpted by the choices you repeat. Whether you realize it or not, your habits are writing your identity. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The Stoic lives by this law. They know that mastery is not found in moments of passion, but in the hours of repetition that no one sees. So this lecture is not about motivation. It is about building something unbreakable. A mind that does not retreat, a spirit that does not beg, and a standard that never lowers. Never quit, never complain, never settle. Endure what you must, improve what you can, accept nothing beneath your character. There is a type of strength that does not announce itself. It does not cry out when tested, nor ask the world for understanding. It simply endures. That is the foundation of Stoicism, to move through pressure without collapse, to stand in silence when others beg for sympathy, to continue forward when comfort demands retreat. The Stoic learns that life will not adjust itself to their convenience. What must adjust is the mind. What must harden is the will. What must evolve is the posture of endurance. Every obstacle a Stoic meets is a chance to refine their internal command. When others speak of bad luck, they see training. When others flinch at difficulty, they see direction. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." This is not a call to suppress emotion, but to master reaction. The world will remain unpredictable, the people within it inconsistent. Complaining only wastes breath that could be used for movement. The Stoic moves. To never quit is not stubbornness. It is alignment with reality. Life has no obligation to ease your path. It only offers terrain. The Stoic walks through it with purpose, knowing that each step taken through resistance strengthens identity. Quitting is not merely the end of effort, it is the erosion of self-trust. Once a person teaches themselves to give up, they begin to believe their future self will do the same. Endurance becomes the proof of who they are. To never complain is to refuse the illusion that the world owes you comfort. The Stoic understands that pain, delay, and difficulty are neutral. Only opinion labels them unfair. Complaints signal resistance to reality. Endurance signals understanding of it. When Epictetus spoke of freedom, he meant mastery over perception. A person who accepts what happens as part of the natural order cannot be broken by it. The act of silence under pressure is not repression, it is sovereignty. To never settle is to reject stagnation disguised as peace. The Stoic does not confuse calm with comfort. True calm is the ability to act without agitation, to persist without desperation. Settling occurs when a person mistakes temporary ease for fulfillment. The Stoic remains in motion, not restless but deliberate. Each day becomes a test of alignment between word and action, principle and performance. There is no final victory, only constant refinement. Every day presents a choice, to yield to fatigue or to build through it. The Stoic selects building. Fatigue is not an enemy, it is a message. It reveals the limits of current capacity and invites expansion. The body tires, the mind protests, but the will remains sovereign. The modern world has taught people to escape every form of discomfort, yet discipline grows only through contact with it. The Stoic trains the instinct to stay, to breathe, to execute, without needing applause. When Seneca wrote of hardship, he did not romanticize suffering. He treated it as training. Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave. Hardship is not punishment, it is purification. Each hardship removes illusions that life should be fair, that others should be kind, that progress should be painless. The Stoic who stops expecting ease becomes unstoppable. They cease negotiating with difficulty. They simply work through it until it yields. To live without complaint is not to live without awareness. It is to recognize that words shape reality. When a person complains, they multiply the weight of the event. When they remain calm, they conserve power for action. The Stoic saves energy by refusing to narrate pain. They treat adversity as data, information to adapt to, not tragedy to dramatize. The less energy wasted in protest, the more energy available for mastery. Persistence builds identity. The Stoics' repetition of action under strain carves the structure of their character. They do not wait for motivation. They construct discipline. The mind becomes a forge. Every task completed under fatigue strengthens the internal command system. The person who endures difficulty without complaint teaches the nervous system that challenge is survivable. Over time, survival turns into stability, and stability into strength. The modern person quits for smaller reasons than ever before. A delay in success becomes an existential crisis. A minor discomfort feels like injustice. The Stoic treats these reactions as signals of soft conditioning. They practice deliberate exposure to inconvenience, taking the harder path, embracing simplicity, accepting delayed gratification. This cultivates independence from outcome. Once a person detaches their sense of worth from external ease, they become unshakable. Never quitting also means knowing what to quit. The Stoic distinguishes between endurance and delusion. They persist in principles, not in vanity. When a pursuit violates integrity, they stop. When effort feeds ego, not excellence, they recalibrate. Endurance without wisdom is stubbornness. Endurance guided by clarity is power. The Stoic does not chase validation, they chase internal coherence. They know what must be sustained and what must be discarded. To live by the principle of never settling requires constant self-observation. Comfort disguises decay. The Stoic watches for signs of mental softness, excuses, distractions, small compromises that grow into habits. They replace indulgence with order. This is not asceticism for its own sake. It is preservation of purpose. Each moment of restraint accumulates into self-respect. Settling, in contrast, drains vitality by surrendering to inertia. The Stoic moves with economy. They do not waste motion, emotion, or attention. Complaints are leaks in the vessel of energy. They train themselves to close those leaks. When irritation arises, they examine it instead of expressing it. When frustration builds, they convert it into productive focus. This conversion is mastery, emotion transformed into action. Silence becomes a weapon of clarity. Never quitting is not a single act. It is a way of existing. The Stoic sees effort as identity. They no longer perform discipline for outcome, they embody it. The act of continuing becomes its own reward. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Freedom here means release from compulsion. No dependence on external validation, no slavery to comfort. The Stoic strength is quiet, but visible. It appears in posture, in consistency, in the refusal to yield. Modern culture promotes comfort as the highest good. Convenience, distraction, and emotional release are sold as necessities. The Stoic rejects this. They understand that ease dilutes the instinct for greatness. Comfort creates dependency. Challenge creates capability. To never settle is to resist this cultural hypnosis. It is a declaration that excellence requires discomfort. That meaning demands cost. Quitting, complaining, and settling share one root: avoidance of reality. Quitting avoids struggle. Complaining avoids acceptance. Settling avoids evolution. The Stoic confronts all three by confronting the self. They stop expecting conditions to cooperate. They remove the illusion of control over what lies beyond the will. Control exists only in perception, intention, and action. That trinity becomes the axis of endurance. Each day becomes an arena. The Stoic wakes with purpose, moves with precision, ends the day with review. They measure themselves not by emotion but by execution. Did I persist? Did I remain calm? Did I act according to principle? The answers define progress. The Stoic is not chasing motivation. They are sculpting constitution. Their discipline becomes a form of stillness in motion, an unshakable composure inside chaos. To never complain also means to never indulge in self-pity disguised as reflection. The Stoic studies setbacks without emotional narrative. They extract the lesson and discard the noise. This mental hygiene prevents decay. Self-pity corrodes clarity. Gratitude restores it. The Stoic practices gratitude not as sentimentality, but as realism, an acknowledgement that existence itself is privilege and that suffering is a feature of life, not a flaw. Every hardship repeats the same question: will you adapt or resist? The Stoic answers by adapting. They view resistance to reality as wasted life. Acceptance does not mean passivity. It means strategic positioning. By accepting what cannot be changed, they free themselves to act on what can. Complaining chains energy to the unchangeable. Acceptance releases it toward mastery. Never settling also means maintaining motion after achievement. Success can be as dangerous as failure. When a person begins to identify with victory, they begin to decay. The Stoic practices detachment even from success. Each win is archived as data, not worshipped as identity. The same effort used to reach the peak is used to stay sharp. The Stoic standard does not relax with recognition. It tightens. Endurance reshapes identity. A person who has persisted through trials gains quiet confidence. They no longer seek validation because survival has already proven their capacity. Their silence is not withdrawal, it is stability. When others chase approval, the Stoic operates in stillness, guided by principle. This composure creates influence. People trust calm, they follow steadiness. The Stoic leads by being unmovable, operates in stillness, guided by principle. This composure creates influence. People trust calm, they follow steadiness. The Stoic leads by being unmovable. The mind is the battlefield. Every thought is a weapon or a wound. The Stoic disciplines this inner terrain. They intercept negative imagination before it expands. They refuse dramatization. They study their impulses with detachment. Each moment of awareness strengthens the mental architecture. Complaining comes from identification with pain. Observation dissolves it. The Stoic watches pain pass. then continues working. To never quit requires faith in cause. Purpose sustains endurance. Without purpose, persistence feels empty. The Stoic aligns action with principle, not pleasure. They know why they suffer, and that knowledge transforms the experience. Nietzsche's observation echoes this. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. The Stoic's why is integrity, to act in accordance with reason, regardless of cost. Never complaining requires humility. It means admitting that your feelings are not the center of reality. The Stoic practices this humility daily. When insulted, they restrain reaction. When misunderstood, they remain still. Their ego does not need public vindication because truth requires no defense. By staying silent, they retain power. By refusing drama, they retain dignity. Never settling demands continual recalibration. The Stoic evaluates progress without vanity. They study weakness without judgment. Improvement is not a competition with others, but a return to form, to act as nature intended, rational, measured, deliberate. The Stoic does not need external motivation because duty replaces desire. They act from principle, not preference. This shift creates peace in motion. The triad, never quit, never complain, never settle, forms a unified discipline. Each supports the other. Endurance without complaint refines strength. Strength without settlement preserves growth. Together, they create an identity immune to volatility. The Stoic becomes a fixed point in a chaotic world. Their power lies not in loud declaration, but in consistent demonstration. They are proof that composure outlasts noise, pain, delay, fatigue. These are constants. The Stoic wastes no time wishing them away. They treat them as companions on the path. Complaining about them would be as foolish as cursing gravity. They are simply there. What changes is response. Response defines the human being. In this way, every hardship is an opportunity to practice mastery. Endurance becomes art. The modern mind wants quick relief. The Stoic mind wants alignment. Relief fades. Alignment endures. Relief depends on circumstance. Alignment depends on character. The Stoic invests in what cannot be taken away. When comfort disappears, their order remains. When praise fades, their principle stands. When exhaustion deepens, their discipline moves them forward. They become the constant amid impermanence. To complain is to give the world evidence that it has power over you. The Stoic gives no such evidence. They express nothing that weakens their position. Words are used for command, not catharsis. Complaints expose dependence. Silence signals control. This silence is not repression, but authority, the ability to feel deeply, yet act clearly. The Stoic feels pain, but they do not perform it. The refusal to settle creates an inner climate of growth. The Stoic builds structure in every domain, physical, mental, moral. They keep the body strong because a weak body limits the mind. They keep the mind sharp because a dull mind misuses the body. They maintain order in surroundings because chaos multiplies distraction. Each domain reinforces the others. The result is a person balanced under pressure. Every complaint is a rehearsal for quitting. Every indulgence is a rehearsal for settling. The Stoic rehearses neither. They train only endurance. This training is not dramatic. It is quiet repetition. The simple act of doing what must be done, daily, without delay, without excuse. Over months and years, this repetition forms an identity immune to inconsistency. The Stoic becomes reliable in a world addicted to reaction. To endure is to remain available to reality. Pain can narrow awareness. The Stoic widens it. They refuse tunnel vision under stress. They observe patterns, adjust strategy, and act without panic. This calm adaptability creates efficiency. The Stoic wastes no energy resisting what is. They invest all energy into what can be done. Control of focus becomes control of outcome. Never quitting, never complaining, never settling. These are not separate commands, but one posture of being. They describe the alignment between intention and execution. A person who lives by them ceases to need external discipline. Their nature becomes law. Their silence carries authority. Their motion carries purpose. Their restraint carries strength. The Stoic's victory is invisible to the world, but absolute within. Discipline is not punishment, it is liberation. When the Stoic stops negotiating with emotion, they become free to act. When they stop complaining, they become free to see. When they stop settling, they become free to grow. This freedom cannot be bought, taught, or gifted. It is built through repetition under fire. It is earned through thousands of quiet refusals to quit, complain, or settle. The mind that endures difficulty without bitterness becomes clear. Clarity leads to decisive action. Decisive action leads to results. Results reinforce clarity. The cycle strengthens itself. The Stoic lives within this loop, not chasing emotion, not escaping discomfort, not seeking validation. They simply maintain motion through reason. Their progress is steady, silent, irreversible. Every person must decide what kind of strength they wish to possess, reactive or disciplined. Reactive strength shouts under pressure and breaks when ignored. Disciplined strength breathes through pain and endures in silence. The Stoic cultivates the latter. They understand that mastery is not in grand gestures, but in consistent restraint. Power that remains calm cannot be manipulated. That is the highest form of freedom. To never quit is to respect time. Every delay wastes energy that could have built foundation. The Stoic treats time as sacred. Complaining steals it, settling dilutes it. By honoring each moment, they expand their influence. They do not chase days, they command them. Each act, no matter how small, becomes a vote for strength. Consistency becomes immortality in motion. Life will test this creed repeatedly. The Stoic expects it. When fatigue arrives, they continue. When misunderstanding spreads, they remain still. When success tempts complacency, they raise the standard. They understand that life does not reward emotion. It rewards endurance. The world respects the one who does not flinch. The Stoic embodies that respect through quiet command. The Stoic's posture is a silent declaration. I will not quit. I will not complain. I will not settle. These are not words. They are architecture. Each decision reinforces structure. Each refusal to complain strengthens walls. Each act of perseverance extends the foundation. What emerges is a person who no longer depends on circumstance. They create order in any environment. This is what it means to live stoically in the modern world, not retreating from life, but mastering engagement with it. To face chaos without complaint, to meet resistance without retreat, to hold ground without arrogance. The Stoic does not announce discipline, they display it. Their calm becomes presence, their presence becomes power, their life becomes the lesson. Difficulty is the element through which greatness is refined. Every human life encounters pressure, resistance, and demand. The Stoic does not beg for these forces to disappear. They understand their necessity. Marcus Aurelius spoke with precision. If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. Within that short command lies the essence of inner power, the discipline to act without resentment, to move without drama, and to rise without noise. The world rewards those who can face its weight without flinching. Endurance is not the denial of pain, it is the correct response to it. The Stoic learns to interpret suffering as instruction. They do not ask why it hurts, but what it reveals. Pain becomes the signal that a boundary is being expanded. Complaining, on the other hand, contracts the spirit. Each word of protest feeds weakness. The Stoic replaces complaint with command of attention, of emotion, of direction. In silence, they become stronger than the obstacle itself. Epictetus wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." The modern world reverses this. People do what they feel like doing and then question why they are unfulfilled. The Stoic builds from the opposite principle, identity before action. They define who they intend to be, and every choice follows that declaration. If one decides to be disciplined, then discipline governs the smallest action. If one decides to be resilient, then resilience governs every response. There is no need to wait for motivation when the identity is already chosen. Seneca taught that difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. This truth is physical and spiritual law. Resistance produces growth. When the body lifts weight, it tears and rebuilds. When the mind faces hardship, it breaks and reforms. Both processes require endurance. Complaining interferes with adaptation. Enduring completes it. The Stoic does not romanticize struggle, but they respect its function. To resist discomfort is to refuse development. To face it is to accelerate transformation. To never quit, never complain, never settle. This triad is the architecture of strength. Each element reinforces the others. Quitting halts progress. Complaining distorts clarity. Settling dissolves potential. The Stoic avoids all three, not through suppression, but through replacement. They replace fear with preparation, noise with focus, stagnation with movement. They live in the narrow corridor between effort and acceptance, doing all that can be done and accepting all that cannot. Marcus Aurelius understood that the universe owes nothing to human expectation. Events unfold according to their nature, not our desire. Complaining does not alter their course. Enduring does. The Stoic accepts what happens and converts it into power. They become the craftsmen of difficulty, shaping adversity into discipline. When life resists, the Stoic responds with proportionate order. They bend reality through self-control, not force. This is mastery, quiet, deliberate, exact. To never quit is to hold faith in unseen progress. Most failures occur not because the goal was unreachable, but because endured too soon. The Stoic sustains movement without evidence. They understand that work accumulates invisibly before results emerge. The mind that stays consistent when others stop gains compound advantage. Endurance becomes leverage. Each day of effort without complaint deepens internal authority. The world respects persistence more than brilliance. Seneca warned against cowardice disguised as difficulty. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. Fear creates obstacles larger than reality. The Stoic dismantles them by acting decisively. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They create clarity through motion. Courage, like endurance, grows through repetition. Each decisive act lowers the threshold of fear. Daring becomes habit, and difficulty becomes routine. Endurance transforms character. A person who has carried their own burden long enough becomes immune to the trivial. Complaints fade when compared to previous trials. This immunity is not indifference. It is strength built through contact with reality. The Stoic does not need external reassurance. They have tested themselves and found stability. Their silence is not emptiness. It is certainty. They no longer seek validation from outcomes. Endurance itself becomes the proof of worth. The command to endure is not passive. It demands activity within limits. When Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is endurable, then endure it," he was not inviting apathy. He was teaching proportion. If something can be handled, handle it. If it cannot, accept it. Energy is preserved by this precision. Complaining wastes it on the unchangeable. Endurance invests it where it counts. This efficiency defines Stoic motion: measured, disciplined, economical. To never settle is to protect momentum from comfort. Success tempts stagnation. Once a person achieves stability, the instinct to rest grows strong. The Stoic resists this by maintaining a mindset of apprenticeship. They remain students of difficulty. Each achievement becomes a new foundation, not a throne. They return to simplicity, refining craft, sharpening discipline, strengthening composure. Settling ends evolution. The Stoic evolves by staying in motion. Epictetus's words echo like law. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This instruction demands clarity before effort. The Stoic defines purpose to prevent wasted action. They do not drift between moods, they operate from identity. Each task becomes an expression of who they are, not what they feel. This alignment creates stability under chaos. When emotion wavers, principle continues the work. To live without complaint is to speak only what improves direction. Words are tools, not outlets. The Stoic uses speech to clarify thought and to instruct action. Emotional outbursts are treated as inefficiency. They train the tongue to serve reason, not emotion. This discipline extends to thought. Internal dialogue must also be ordered. The Stoic audits their mental language, removing victimhood, installing responsibility. Over time, the mind becomes an instrument of precision. Endurance is cumulative. Every moment endured without complaint increases capacity. The Stoic treats hardship as weight training for the soul. Each difficulty faced consciously expands tolerance for the next. Pain teaches control. Delay teaches patience. Fatigue teaches consistency. Through repetition, endurance becomes identity. The Stoic no longer needs to remind themselves to persist. Persistence becomes instinct. Seneca's insight that labor strengthens both mind and body applies beyond philosophy. The physical act of discipline reinforces the mental. Training, work, study, all forms of exertion polish the will. The Stoic sees no separation between mental and physical domains. A weak body undermines focus. A weak mind misdirects strength. Both must be cultivated. Labor purifies distraction, converting restlessness into structure. The Stoic works not just to produce, but to align. To never quit requires a vision stronger than emotion. Feelings are temporary, principles endure. The Stoic ties action to principle. This tether prevents collapse during low motivation. They do not ask whether they feel ready. They act because it must be done. Over time, duty replaces desire. Work becomes meditation. The repetition of effort without dependence on feeling creates stability. In that stability, the Stoic finds freedom. Complaining arises from confusion between control and influence. The Stoic separates them with precision. Control concerns one's own mind, decisions and effort. Influence extends outward, but remains uncertain. Complaining tries to control what belongs to chance. The Stoic saves energy by releasing the uncontrollable. They focus entirely on what can be done. This focus transforms anxiety into power. Attention becomes a weapon against chaos. Never settling is not about aggression, it is about vigilance. The Stoic remains alert to comfort's deception. Ease whispers the lie that growth can pause. The Stoic rejects this illusion. They understand that comfort quickly turns to decay. Every day without challenge weakens capacity. To stay sharp, they seek friction, not for pain, but for precision. Difficulty keeps the blade of will honed. The Stoic also endures others. Human behavior is inconsistent. Praise and criticism, loyalty and betrayal, gratitude and neglect, all appear without pattern. The Stoic expects this variance. They do not demand harmony from the crowd. Their peace comes from self-command, not public approval. When insulted, they stay silent. When praised, they stay grounded. This equilibrium preserves authority. Enduring external chaos begins with internal order. The Stoic organizes thoughts as a general arranges troops. Each belief must serve strategy. Emotional impulses that weaken formation are dismissed. Clarity commands emotion, not the reverse. Through this mental discipline, the Stoic walks calmly through conflict. Their demeanor unsettles those addicted to reaction. Calmness becomes an unspoken declaration of control. To never quit is also to accept imperfection. Progress will always be incomplete. The Stoic understands that mastery is asymptotic, always approached, never reached. This awareness removes frustration. They find meaning in the process itself. Each repetition, each test, each failure contributes to strength. The goal is not to escape struggle but to refine through it. Endurance transforms frustration into education. Seneca's phrase about daring illuminates another truth. Courage must precede clarity. Waiting for fear to vanish ensures stagnation. The Stoic acts while afraid. Motion creates understanding. Each act of courage strengthens faith in reason over emotion. Fear loses precision when ignored and focus sharpens. This is how daring reshapes difficulty. By confronting it directly, the Stoic reduces its power. To never complain requires loyalty to reason over pride. The ego seeks recognition for suffering. The Stoic denies it. They endure without audience because endurance is personal evidence of command. Publicizing pain weakens its lesson. Private endurance solidifies it. The Stoic measures progress in silence. Their satisfaction is internal, measured by stability, not sympathy. The practice of endurance removes panic from failure. When the Stoic encounters loss, they analyze it as information, not tragedy. They learn, adjust, and continue. This continuity builds invincibility. A person who cannot be stopped by pain, delay, or failure cannot be controlled by the world. They become self-sustaining. Their discipline replaces luck. Their patience replaces urgency. To never settle also means refusing mediocrity disguised as balance. Modern comfort praises moderation without mastery. The Stoic understands that balance must be earned through extremes. Only after experiencing exhaustion can one appreciate rest. Only after facing chaos can one understand calm. Balance without effort is stagnation. Balance through effort is stability. The Stoic chooses the latter, building equilibrium through action. Each of these teachings converges into one posture, composure under pressure. The Stoic endures, decides, and grows. They do not perform strength, they embody it. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca spoke from lived experience, leaders, slaves, and statesmen who each faced volatility without collapse. Their words remain living instruction because they apply to every era. The human condition has not changed, only the distractions have multiplied. The Stoic resists distraction by returning to command of self. Identity becomes the compass, reason the map, and endurance the movement. Every difficulty is measured against these coordinates. Quitting is deviation, complaining is noise, settling is stagnation. The Stoic eliminates all three through alignment. Once aligned, they move through life as through weather, affected but not defined by it. Pain, delay, confusion and uncertainty will continue to arrive. The Stoic does not pray for their absence, they prepare for their arrival. Preparation replaces fear with readiness. When the test comes, they meet it as a familiar. Their response is instinctive: endure, act, refine. Each encounter strengthens the architecture of command. In this way, difficulty becomes devotion, devotion to mastery. To live this way is to choose structure over chaos. The Stoic constructs an inner citadel. Complaints cannot enter. Doubt finds no purchase. Quitting cannot pass the gates. Within that citadel, calm reigns. It is not detachment from life, but engagement with precision. Every act reinforces the walls. Every silence strengthens the foundation. This is the fortress built by discipline. The command remains simple, repeated through centuries. If it is endurable, then endure it. Say to yourself what you would be and do what you must. Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor strengthens the body. Dare and difficulty dissolves. The Stoic who lives by these truths becomes untouchable by chaos and immovable by circumstance. They never quit, never complain, and never settle, because they have become the proof that endurance is strength itself. Excellence is not an event, it is a system. Aristotle's words remain as sharp as they were when first spoken. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The modern world glorifies sudden transformation, overnight success, and dramatic reinvention. Habit is destiny written in motion. Every person becomes a reflection of their daily conduct. A single action means little. A repeated action defines identity. The Stoic does not ask for motivation. They ask for structure. They wake, move, think, and act within rhythm. Repetition becomes their anchor in chaos. The world changes daily. Their discipline does not. In this steadiness lies superiority. Those who rely on inspiration fluctuate. Those who rely on structure ascend. Aristotle's insight is a map of behavior. If one desires excellence, they must first master consistency. The Stoic trains the body and mind to act correctly, regardless of emotion. Emotion is volatile. Action must not be. Through deliberate repetition, the Stoic eliminates hesitation. Habits replace decision-making fatigue. Each action executed from principle deepens alignment between belief and behavior. The result is integrity, not moral decoration, but operational coherence. Plato echoed this truth. Excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. Modern culture worships talent as if greatness were bestowed. The Stoic sees it differently. Talent is potential, practice is realization, skill is carved by patience. The Stoic values progress over performance, construction over display. They know that each repetition, even unseen, adds invisible weight to future strength. What appears effortless in mastery is built from countless private repetitions. Patience is the hidden architecture behind mastery. Aristotle said, "Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet." The Stoic accepts this bitterness willingly. They do not expect immediate reward. They work without applause, without timeline. The sweetness of patience lies in the stability it builds. When others abandon effort, the Stoic remains. Their progress compounds quietly, creating momentum that no external praise can replicate. To never quit, never complain, never settle, these principles sustain habit formation. Quitting breaks rhythm, complaining disrupts focus, settling halts progression. The Stoic safeguards against all three by creating systems stronger than emotion. Each day is designed in advance, the schedule, the tasks, the mindset. By committing to structure, the Stoic removes negotiation. Excellence becomes predictable because behavior is consistent. The body learns through repetition what the mind must learn through reflection. Every repetition reinforces an idea. Each time the Stoic chooses order over impulse, patience over urgency, and endurance over comfort, they strengthen the neural pathways of discipline. Excellence becomes physical. The body itself begins to resist laziness and seek order. Habit converts philosophy into instinct. Plato's lesson that excellence is a skill extends beyond work. It applies to speech, thought, and perception. The Stoic practices clarity until confusion feels unnatural. They practice restraint until reaction feels foreign. They practice calm until chaos fails to provoke them. Each of these is a skill, not a mood. The repetition of these behaviors transforms personality into principle. The Stoic no longer acts stoically. They are Stoic by nature. Patience demands respect for time. The Stoic understands that growth occurs invisibly before it manifests visibly. Effort accumulates like sediment, forming layers of strength beneath the surface. The impatient abandon their work before the results emerge. The patient endure until transformation is undeniable. This endurance creates the separation between ordinary and exceptional. Excellence rewards those who stay after others have left. Aristotle's framework dismantles the illusion of motivation. Motivation is fleeting, discipline endures. The Stoic builds habits precisely to escape dependence on inspiration. Routine becomes armor against apathy. When emotion fades, the system carries them. The disciplined person performs with the same precision on their best day and their worst. This is the essence of mastery: predictability under pressure. The Stoic treats every task, however small, as training for excellence. Washing dishes, writing a line, completing a repetition, all become practice for composure, focus, and order. Excellence cannot exist in fragments. It requires total alignment. A person who seeks greatness only in grand acts will fail to recognize its seed in the ordinary. The Stoics' strength lies in their capacity to make the mundane sacred. Habits sculpt fate. The Stoic knows that destiny is not written by circumstance but by repetition. What one does daily outweighs what one intends occasionally. Intentions are weak without ritual. The Stoic builds rituals of excellence: morning reflection, measured labor, evening review. These practices transform abstract philosophy into lived experience. Thought without application decays. Application without thought blinds. The Stoic fuses both. Plato's notion of excellence as skill demands humility. Skills are learned through error, correction, and persistence. The Stoic expects failure as part of refinement. They view mistakes not as identity threats, but as coordinates for improvement. Each failure contains instruction. The Stoic extracts that instruction without self-pity. This emotional neutrality accelerates growth. Pride resists feedback. Humility integrates it. Aristotle's wisdom on repetition aligns with the Stoics' pursuit of stability. Stability does not mean stillness. It means reliable motion. The Stoic repeats their principles under changing conditions. When success arrives, they continue working. When loss strikes, they continue working. This constancy removes volatility from life. Their mood no longer dictates their pace. Routine becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes resilience. Patience also refines perception. When time slows, clarity increases. The Stoic who moves patiently sees patterns invisible to the impulsive. They anticipate consequences, adjust direction, and act with economy. Impatience creates waste. Patience creates precision. The bitter taste of delay is the price of accuracy. The Stoic pays it willingly. Sweetness belongs to those who endure the weight without resentment. To never settle is to understand that excellence has no finish line. The Stoic treats achievement as maintenance, not conclusion. Each accomplishment becomes an obligation to sustain standard. Settling invites decay. The Stoic revisits fundamentals constantly: form, focus, reason. They understand that the foundation must be strengthened as the structure rises. Mastery is preserved through maintenance. Excellence as habit also means excellence as identity. When Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do," he described the metamorphosis of action into being. Repetition rewires character. The Stoic no longer pretends discipline. They are discipline embodied. Every small act contributes to this transformation. The consistency of these acts becomes a form of truth, proof of integrity in motion. Patience, repetition, and excellence converge into calm. The Stoic's calm is not absence of motion. It is perfect synchronization between effort and understanding. They no longer resist process. They flow through it. Each delay becomes opportunity for refinement. Each failure becomes instruction for accuracy. Complaints vanish because there is nothing to oppose, only reality to master. The Stoic knows that time rewards those who respect it. Quick results belong to the impulsive. Enduring results belong to the disciplined. A single act of brilliance cannot rival decades of consistent effort. Greatness is compound interest in action. The Stoic invests daily without withdrawal, without spectacle. Over years, this invisible accumulation becomes visible authority. Excellence demands repetition because chaos never stops testing order. Every day brings distraction, temptation, and fatigue. The Stoic's habits defend against these assaults. Morning reflection restores direction. Labor enforces discipline. Silence restores energy. This system allows composure under pressure. When others crumble from inconsistency, the Stoic remains steady through trained instinct. Plato's declaration that excellence is a skill reveals its democratic nature. Anyone may practice. The difference lies not in opportunity, but endurance. The Stoic's advantage is not luck, but loyalty to principle. They show up when emotion fades. They practice when attention wanes. They work while others wait for ideal circumstances. Excellence becomes inevitable through sheer consistency. To never complain is to protect focus from corruption. Complaints distract from execution. Each moment spent lamenting delay could be used refining effort. The Stoic uses silence as concentration. They replace grievance with adjustment. This detachment from frustration keeps the system clean. Where others dissipate energy in words, the Stoic channels it into refinement. Patience demands faith in unseen progression. The Stoic cultivates this faith not through hope, but through evidence, the evidence of previous endurance. Each time they persisted through difficulty, results eventually appeared. Memory becomes proof. This proof fuels future patience. The cycle continues until the Stoic's faith in process replaces fear of outcome. Aristotle's philosophy of repetition connects directly to modern resilience. In an age of distraction, the ability to sustain one focus is rare power. The Stoic builds immunity to novelty. They train themselves to stay, to complete, to perfect. Each completed task strengthens will. Each ignored distraction builds control. Excellence grows in proportion to focus. Plato understood that excellence is teachable. The Stoic proves this daily through imitation and example. Discipline spreads through observation. A calm person stabilizes those around them. A focused person sharpens others by proximity. The Stoic becomes a living standard, not by preaching, but by existing. Their habits speak with silent authority. Patience transforms ambition from fire into endurance. Ambition without patience burns out. Patience converts ambition into sustained heat, steady, useful, creative. The Stoic channels ambition through repetition. Desire becomes design. Design becomes destiny. This transformation removes chaos from pursuit. What remains is deliberate progression. Excellence, as Aristotle described, is not emotional but mechanical. It is built on principles of repetition, reflection, and correction. The Stoic applies this logic to every domain: health, relationships, work, thought. Each area demands its own structure, but follows the same law: small acts, consistently aligned. Mastery becomes a patternly aligned. Mastery becomes a pattern recognized across contexts. To never quit within this framework means to preserve system integrity. One broken day does not break the person, because the system compensates. The Stoic builds redundancy, reflections that realign, routines that restart, habits that recover. This self-healing structure prevents collapse. Excellence is not perfection, it is durability. Patience also eliminates comparison. The Stoic measures progress only against previous self. Envy fades because focus narrows. Comparison distracts from mastery. The Stoic knows that excellence is internal architecture, not social currency. What matters is depth, not display. Growth becomes quiet satisfaction, not public performance. Excellence as habit eventually becomes serenity. The Stoic no longer fights chaos, they outlast it. Routine absorbs uncertainty. Each action performed with care stabilizes the mind. Days gain structure, thoughts gain order. In this harmony, peace emerges, not from escape, but from execution. Aristotle, Plato, and the Stoics converge on one truth: the path to excellence is repetition under patience. The modern person seeks acceleration. The Stoic seeks direction. Speed without alignment leads nowhere. The Stoic moves deliberately, ensuring each repetition strengthens, not scatters. This is the quiet science of mastery. Patience remains the hardest virtue because it cannot be faked. Time exposes inconsistency. Only genuine discipline survives it. The Stoic accepts this exposure. They welcome time as an ally that separates the sincere from the superficial. In the end, patience always rewards integrity. Excellence, patience, and habit converge into identity. The Stoic no longer practices these traits, they embody them. Their every motion reflects years of disciplined construction. They have become the living expression of Aristotle's observation, proof that what one does repeatedly, one becomes permanently. Through patience, through practice, through principle, the Stoic achieves what cannot be taken away: mastery over self. The Stoic does not negotiate with fatigue. They do not reason with pain. They do not plead for mercy from circumstance. They stand inside what is difficult until it bends. Every person who wishes to master life must learn this posture: to never quit, to never complain, to never settle. These are not slogans. They are internal laws written into the architecture of endurance. The moment a person accepts that the world will not soften for them, they become unbreakable. The moment they stop expecting ease, they become free. Discipline begins when comfort ends. The body wants to stop, the mind wants to escape. But the Stoic learns to sit inside that resistance and breathe through it. They do not curse the hardship, they convert it into strength. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life would present difficulty, insult, and discomfort, and that he should meet them without anger. You shouldn't give circumstances the power to rouse anger, for they don't care at all. The world will move on whether you complain or not. Only the disciplined will rise from it stronger. Complaining is a confession of powerlessness. It is the language of those who believe they have been wronged by life. The Stoic does not think in those terms. When confronted by something bitter, they simply discard it. That cucumber is bitter. Then throw it away. No dramatization, no endless reflection. Life is filled with unpleasant elements, thorns, delays, insults, betrayals. To waste thought on them is to surrender attention to what cannot be controlled. The Stoic moves past them, not with coldness, but with clarity. To never quit is not to never fail. It is to never flee from the process. Failure may come many times, but quitting removes the possibility of refinement. Every attempt, every repetition, every difficult morning contributes to the unseen strength that later appears as composure. The person who refuses to quit eventually moves beyond competition. They develop internal durability. They no longer need external validation because they are occupied with mastery itself. To never complain is to remove noise from the mind. Complaints scatter energy. They create a false intimacy with weakness, an agreement with one's limitations. When a person complains, they declare that the external world must change before they can endure. The Stoic reverses this order. They adapt themselves to the situation. They keep their dignity intact by meeting what is unjust with order. Silence becomes their form of power. To never settle is to protect the ambition of the soul. A person's worth is measured by the worth of their ambitions. Small ambitions create small spirits. Large ambitions require structure, restraint, and vision. The Stoic does not chase everything. They pursue what aligns with their nature. To settle would mean to abandon that higher aim for comfort, approval, or ease. To them, stagnation is a form of death. The art of persistence is not loud. It is quiet repetition. It is showing up after the excitement has faded, doing the same act with precision again and again. The modern mind seeks stimulation. The Stoic mind seeks stability. Where others look for novelty, they refine consistency. They build endurance through stillness. They find meaning in repetition. This is what separates the distracted from the disciplined. The habit of complaint is an old reflex of the ego. It wants recognition for suffering. It wants witnesses. The Stoic sees no virtue in broadcasting pain. They process it privately and transform it internally. The greatest strength often appears invisible. It exists in those who continue in silence while others talk about how hard it is. To stay composed while under pressure is a sign of mastery. Life rewards the one who can remain calm in chaos. The world is unpredictable, but the Stoic does not demand predictability. They accept the instability of events and stabilize themselves. They do not need certainty to act. They move forward regardless of how unclear the future may seem. The disciplined mind functions well under uncertainty because it relies on principle, not comfort. Those who complain look outward. Those who endure look inward. When you direct energy outward toward complaint, you weaken your inner control. When you hold it inward, you build strength. Every complaint is an opportunity lost to improve something within. This is why Stoics treat discomfort as a form of practice. It trains them to strengthen the boundary between the external and the internal. To never quit means to stay loyal to one's duty, even when emotion no longer supports it. Many people are faithful when inspired. Few are faithful when exhausted. The Stoic is built to continue without inspiration. They act because the act is right, not because it feels rewarding. The emotion may come and go, but the principle stays. This stability is what builds character. To never complain is to recognize the futility of dramatizing reality. Anger does not change facts. Complaints do not fix obstacles. Only discipline reshapes conditions. The Stoic has no interest in emotional performances. They know that energy spent lamenting is energy stolen from action. They prefer the sharpness of silence over the dullness of reaction. To never settle is to refuse self-betrayal. The comfort of mediocrity seduces the tired mind. The Stoic resists this comfort as a form of discipline. They understand that temporary peace gained through surrender leads to long-term unrest. They would rather endure tension in pursuit of excellence than rest in the ease of stagnation. This is how inner standards rise. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to count blessings rather than chase fantasies. Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess. Gratitude is the counterweight to complaint. When the mind focuses on what is missing, it multiplies discontent. When it focuses on what is present, it finds strength to act. The Stoic uses gratitude as armor against frustration. The modern world conditions people to expect ease. Every inconvenience is treated as injustice. Every delay is taken personally. The Stoic rejects this fragility. They see that nature owes them nothing, and that resilience is self-created. Life is indifferent, but that indifference is liberating. The disciplined person learns to operate without depending on approval or smoothness. They train their will to hold shape under resistance. Difficulty is not an interruption, it is the path itself. The Stoic knows this, and therefore meets difficulty with respect. They do not exaggerate its weight. They simply move through it. Those who expect comfort crumble when faced with difficulty. Those who expect difficulty remain calm. The difference is preparation. The Stoic practices hardship mentally before it arrives, so when it does, they are already familiar with its form. To never quit means to maintain alignment with one's highest standard despite exhaustion. The Stoic understands that fatigue is part of transformation. They do not mistake weariness for weakness. Every repetition through fatigue deepens control. What feels like breaking is often the beginning of endurance. Strength is built quietly, through consistent effort, applied without recognition. To never complain is to refuse to poison the mind with negativity. The Stoic treats words as instruments of focus. Complaining scatters focus, and the disciplined person guards attention like a scarce resource. They use words with precision, directing them toward clarity, not chaos. Speech becomes an extension of control, and silence becomes a tool for discipline. To never settle is to keep the spirit in motion. Settling often disguises itself as acceptance, but true acceptance is strength, not surrender. The Stoic accepts what cannot be changed, but relentlessly improves what can. They do not wait for motivation, they operate from will. They understand that progress is not built in surges, but in long sequences of silent consistency. Persistence without complaint produces power that cannot be faked. It builds confidence independent of praise. The one who stays disciplined through obscurity becomes formidable in visibility. The external world cannot grant them strength because it did not build it. This kind of inner construction is what the Stoics called virtue, the alignment of thought, action, and principle. The person who does not quit becomes steady. The one who does not complain becomes clear. The one who does not settle becomes unstoppable. This triad forms the spine of Stoic living. It is the antidote to the instability of emotion. When others fluctuate with circumstance, the disciplined person maintains form. They do not break when plans collapse. They adjust, recalibrate, continue. Anger, complaint, and surrender are the three enemies of composure. Anger distorts judgment. Complaint distorts. Do not break when plans collapse. They adjust, recalibrate, continue. Anger, complaint, and surrender are the three enemies of composure. Anger distorts judgment. Complaint distorts perception. Surrender distorts ambition. The Stoic fights these not with aggression, but with attention. They replace anger with patience, complaint with gratitude, surrender with persistence. They do not waste energy opposing life. They conserve it to improve response. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Because a thing seems difficult for you, do not think it impossible." This line encapsulates the Stoic's entire attitude. Difficulty is not a sign to stop. It is an invitation to grow. Most people underestimate how much they can endure because they never commit fully to the act of enduring. The Stoic discovers strength by remaining in discomfort longer than expected. Through this, they expand their capacity for everything else. A person who refuses to quit learns to live with pressure. They no longer interpret struggle as punishment. They see it as confirmation that they are moving against inertia. Each repetition of will against resistance deepens their identity. What begins as effort becomes habit, and what begins as habit becomes nature. Discipline then transforms from something practiced to something embodied. The discipline of silence is central. The Stoic speaks when necessary, acts when required, and remains silent when noise dominates. Silence is not passivity, it is power under control. Those who complain seek relief through words. Those who master themselves seek relief through clarity. They know that restraint builds strength faster than release. The modern mind, flooded with information, seeks escape through complaint. It wants to narrate every frustration. The Stoic declines this habit. They stay close to simplicity. They focus on what can be done now, without dramatizing the obstacle. Every moment wasted in complaint is a moment stolen from progress. The disciplined person learns to conserve motion. To never quit, never complain, never settle is not natural. It must be trained. It requires daily confrontation with the weaker self. It demands a constant awareness of the mind's tricks, its desire for ease, its search for validation, its tendency to rationalize excuses. The Stoic dismantles these illusions patiently. They remind themselves that mastery is built on thousands of small victories over impulse. The ego resists humility, yet humility is what allows persistence. When one accepts that progress requires submission to process, endurance becomes easier. Complaints vanish when one sees them as resistance to truth. Settling loses its attraction when one experiences the peace that comes from consistency. True strength is quiet and patient, not theatrical or loud. Modern culture celebrates comfort and visibility, but the Stoic celebrates endurance and clarity. To them, the person who quietly endures without applause possesses more strength than the one who performs perseverance for attention. The aim is to build a life so steady that it no longer requires validation. The Stoic is unmoved by both praise and criticism. They continue because it is their nature to continue. To never quit means to finish the task regardless of emotion. To never complain means to carry weight without dramatization. To never settle means to keep sharpening one's edge, even when it would be easier to rest. These are the disciplines that separate the resilient from the restless. The Stoic does not chase ease, they chase excellence, and excellence requires endurance. Every person who wishes to embody this principle must study their own reactions. Where do they withdraw? Where do they complain internally? Where do they settle for less than they know they can achieve? The Stoic brings light into these areas, not to judge, but to strengthen. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. By observing themselves honestly, They reclaim control over instinct. Pain, fatigue, boredom, all are signals that discipline is working. The weak avoid these signals, the strong follow them. To endure these sensations without resistance is to learn mastery over self. The Stoic accepts them as evidence of progress. They understand that the body and mind adapt only when pushed beyond comfort. What breaks you today will strengthen you tomorrow if you stay. Complaints are a luxury of the untrained. The trained mind uses every event as instruction. When things go wrong, the Stoic asks, "What is within my control?" and acts accordingly. This mindset removes chaos. The person who thinks like this becomes a force of stability. They are unaffected by the volatility of emotion or circumstance because they operate on principle. To never settle is to stay loyal to evolution. It is refusing to identify with an old version of oneself. The Stoic renews their standards constantly. Each day they begin again, building from what was learned yesterday without attachment to past success. This keeps the spirit fresh. Those who settle grow stagnant because they confuse comfort with peace. The Stoic seeks peace through mastery, not ease. To quit is to deny growth. To complain is to deny gratitude. To settle is to deny potential. The disciplined person lives in rejection of these denials. They build a life that expands through resistance. They seek no applause because they understand that excellence exists in the act itself. Their work is their philosophy, and their endurance is their proof. A person who masters these principles no longer reacts impulsively. They observe, they act, they return to calm. This is what makes Stoicism powerful. It is not emotionless, it is emotionally disciplined. It does not destroy feeling, it structures it. The Stoic feels deeply but acts deliberately. They have trained themselves to channel emotion into productive force. To never quit, never complain, never settle, is to live aligned with nature's demand for strength. The universe does not cater to the weak. It evolves through friction. Every living thing must endure change. Those who resist it suffer. Those who align with it grow. The Stoic aligns with it by making struggle sacred. They see hardship as a dialogue with reality, not a punishment. The path of discipline is simple, not easy. To rise early when tired, to remain calm when provoked, to act when uninspired, to continue when unseen. These repetitions carve identity into something indestructible. No external loss can take it away because it was not given by the external world. It was built internally, one decision at a time. Every complaint weakens focus. Every act of endurance strengthens it. Every time a person refuses to settle, their confidence compounds. Life then becomes less about control and more about conduct. The Stoic no longer asks for easier circumstances, they ask for stronger character. This mindset ends the cycle of frustration and begins the era of mastery. To live this way is to rise above circumstance. It is to treat difficulty as a teacher, not an enemy. The disciplined mind looks at pain, loss, or challenge and asks, "What is this showing me about myself?" They extract lessons rather than lament conditions. They move forward in silence, leaving behind those still debating fairness. This is a foundation for anyone who wants peace with strength. The Stoic does not look for motivation. They build systems of duty. They do not seek admiration, they seek alignment. In the stillness of their persistence, life reveals itself as it truly is, indifferent, demanding, and deeply rewarding to those who stay. Fear of the future weakens the mind. It divides focus, fractures calm, and fills the present with shadows of what may never arrive. The Stoic stands apart from this habit of imagination. They meet each moment with the same tools they already hold: reason, discipline, composure. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." The meaning is precise. The future is only a repetition of what you already face. It will not require new tools, only the continued mastery of the ones you have now. The person who trains their reason today does not fear tomorrow. Every exercise in composure prepares them for the next storm. Worry invents battles that may never occur, while preparation strengthens the will for any that do. The Stoic does not predict, they prepare. They understand that fear is imagination without control. When attention drifts into what might happen, strength leaves what is happening. To stay in the present is to keep all energy available for action. The mind seeks security and forecasting, but life never obeys the forecast. The Stoic accepts this law. They rely on principles, not predictions. If hardship arrives, they will meet it with order. If fortune arrives, they will meet it with restraint. Either way, they remain armed. This quiet readiness is power. Neither expectation nor dread can disturb it. The disciplined person does not wait for calm conditions to act with clarity. They act with clarity regardless of condition. The habit of projecting into the future drains vitality. Each imagined disaster costs the mind a portion of its strength. Anxiety grows in the gap between control and uncertainty. The Stoic narrows that gap by refusing to fill it with fantasy. They remind themselves that the same strength used to endure the present will serve again. Nothing in the future requires panic, only patience and method. Reason is a renewable weapon. It grows sharper with use. Every situation met calmly refines it further. Each moment of restraint builds the next. This is why the Stoic trains every day, not for comfort, but for consistency. They know that fear is weakened by familiarity. When the mind is used to discipline under stress, uncertainty loses its edge. The unknown becomes just another form of the known. The second teaching follows naturally. It is essential for you to remember that the attention you give to any action should be in due proportion to its worth, for then you won't tire and give up if you aren't busying yourself with lesser things beyond what should be allowed. Focus must be disciplined. Attention is a resource. The Stoic allocates it precisely. They give effort to what matters and ignore the noise of what does not. Fatigue often comes not from difficulty, but from dispersion. A person who divides their mind among trivialities weakens themselves for the essentials. Every distraction is a small betrayal of purpose. The Stoic cuts away the unnecessary with precision. They understand that clarity is strength, and strength requires conservation. When one spends attention carelessly, exhaustion follows. When attention is guarded, endurance multiplies. This is the mathematics of discipline. The modern mind attention carelessly, exhaustion follows. When attention is guarded, endurance multiplies. This is the mathematics of discipline. The modern mind mistakes busyness for purpose. It fills the day with noise and then wonders why calm disappears. The Stoic measures each act by worth. They do not hurry through life collecting tasks that do not serve their aim. Each decision passes through a filter. Does this strengthen or scatter me? This question preserves both energy and peace. It transforms time into a weapon instead of a burden. The one who gives attention in proportion to worth never burns out. Their effort is strategic, not frantic. They rest without guilt because their focus has direction. This is what separates true endurance from blind effort. To continue meaningfully, one must first act meaningfully. Every action should align with purpose. otherwise it drains more than it builds. The Stoic's calm is a byproduct of such alignment. To fear the future is to misuse the present. The energy meant for action becomes fuel for imagination. The Stoic reclaims that energy by disciplining their thoughts. They remind themselves that the future is not an event, but a concept. It exists only in the mind, and the mind can be trained to ignore illusions. The disciplined person brings attention back to what can be touched, seen, or done now. This recentering kills anxiety at its root. Preparation without fear becomes a source of confidence. Fear without preparation becomes paralysis. The Stoic practices the first. They visualize difficulty not to suffer in advance, but to remove surprise. When the event comes, they meet it as expected. This removes the emotional weight of shock. Life becomes manageable because nothing is treated as impossible. Each challenge is absorbed into the flow of reason. Every act of restraint today is an investment in composure tomorrow. The person who panics daily weakens their endurance. The person who endures calmly grows unshakable. This difference compounds with time. The Stoic understands that future stability is built by present discipline. The way you respond to one hardship determines how you will respond to the next. Those who scatter their attention across the unimportant will always feel time slipping away. The Stoic treats time as sacred. They refuse to waste it on lesser things. They approach each task with precision, give it full attention, and move on. This orderliness creates mental space for clarity. It also prevents exhaustion. The undisciplined person is always tired because they fight unnecessary battles. To live by reason is to live without panic. Reason does not eliminate emotion. It organizes it. It gives each feeling its rightful size. When the mind is trained to pause before reaction, life becomes slower internally, even if fast externally. The Stoic's calm is not inaction, it is control. They direct attention with intention. They decide what deserves energy and what does not. Anxiety often grows from wanting to control outcomes. The Stoic only controls conduct. They leave the rest to nature. This shift of focus from result to process releases mental pressure. It turns fear into concentration. What others call uncertainty, the Stoic calls opportunity to apply discipline. Each uncertain moment becomes a test of the system they have built within. Energy follows attention. When directed well, it strengthens. When scattered, it depletes. The Stoic channels attention into actions that have real weight. They refuse to give emotional investment to temporary irritations. This is why they seem unbothered. They are not detached from life, but attached to what matters most. Everything else passes through them without friction. The modern person exhausts themselves with anticipation. They live two lives, one in thought, one in reality. The Stoic lives only one. They meet each hour as it arrives. They do not spend today trying to solve tomorrow. They understand that the future, when it comes, will present the same structure of choice and control as now. The same discipline will apply. The same reason will suffice. Fear of the future often hides lack of trust in oneself. The Stoic builds that trust through repeated self-command. Each time they resist distraction, they confirm their own reliability. Each time they choose calm over chaos, they reinforce stability. This accumulation of control becomes armor. The more one proves capable in the present, the less they fear what comes next. To allocate attention proportionately requires honesty. Many tire themselves with pursuits they secretly know are meaningless. They continue out of habit or appearance. The Stoic ends this pattern by prioritizing truth over comfort. They stop pretending that every demand deserves response. They treat attention like currency and spend it only on what builds worth. This self-selection creates power through conservation. A person who protects their focus develops inner economy. They do more with less. They no longer confuse activity with progress. Their time expands because it is no longer divided by noise. Each act carries full intensity. This deep focus replaces stress with satisfaction. Fatigue disappears when every effort has purpose. The Stoic lives this way as an act of respect toward time itself. The fear of the future and the fatigue of overextension are connected. Both come from trying to control too much. The Stoic corrects this by simplifying. They hold fewer thoughts, fewer ambitions at once, but with greater depth. This minimalism of mind breeds endurance. Clarity is not an aesthetic, it is survival. The clearer the purpose, the calmer the execution. To meet the future with reason is to believe in one's own capacity for order. The Stoic has faith not in outcomes, but in process. They know that whatever happens, they can meet it with composure. This confidence dissolves fear. It also prevents the arrogance of thinking one can predict life. Acceptance replaces anxiety. Readiness replaces control. Attention in proportion to worth creates a hierarchy of action. At the top are duties aligned with virtue, honesty, courage, discipline. Beneath them are practical obligations. At the bottom are trivial distractions. The Stoic arranges their day according to this structure. They start with what shapes character, not what fills time. This hierarchy turns routine into ritual. To remain calm in uncertainty is not indifference, it is refinement. The untrained mind seeks relief through prediction. The trained mind finds relief in presence. When reason guides behavior, chaos becomes manageable. Life remains complex, but the Stoic is no longer lost within it. They become an axis of stillness inside motion. The mind cannot serve two masters, control and worry. The Stoic chooses control. They act cleanly within their domain and leave the rest untouched. This discipline restores simplicity. It frees emotion to serve action rather than disrupt it. By focusing only on what deserves effort, they preserve balance. Their calm is not luck. It is constructed through choice. Every person faces moments where the future feels heavy. The Stoic handles these moments through clarity, not denial. They prepare rationally for what can be influenced and dismiss what cannot. This division keeps the spirit intact. Fear multiplies where boundaries are unclear. Reason draws those boundaries sharply. The Stoic meets the same sunrise and sunset as everyone else, but their inner response differs. They do not wake fearing what the day may bring. They wake prepared to meet it with the same strength they held yesterday. They do not sleep worrying about tomorrow. They rest knowing that tomorrow can be faced with the same calm that carried them through today. To master attention and fear is to master the rhythm of existence. The mind no longer oscillates between regret and anticipation. It rests in what is. This does not make life easier. It makes it lighter. The Stoic walks through the same world as everyone else, but without the extra weight of imagined burdens. Reason is not absence of emotion. It is direction of emotion. Fear, excitement, anxiety, all are redirected toward constructive ends. The Stoic does not waste them. They transmute energy into discipline. The future then ceases to intimidate because it has been stripped of uncertainty's chaos. It becomes another opportunity to apply order. To give each act the right amount of attention is to live proportionately. The Stoic does not overthink small matters or underthink large ones. They apply the correct measure of focus and then release it. This proportionality creates balance. It keeps the mind fresh for the next act. Fatigue comes when attention is trapped. Freedom comes when attention is deliberate. The disciplined life is a narrow path of priorities. It does not invite everything in. It chooses carefully. By this method, energy accumulates instead of dispersing. The Stoic knows that life's strength is determined by where attention rests. They choose to place it on duty, virtue, and reality. The rest dissolves on contact. To live this way is to step out of anxiety's cycle. It is to meet the future as a repetition of the present's lessons. The same composure, the same reason, the same courage. All that has carried one through today will suffice again. Fear loses its argument when one realizes that they already possess what is needed to endure. That realization is the beginning of calm that cannot be disturbed. The discipline of self-direction begins with silence toward comparison. Marcus Aurelius warned against wasting life, observing the conduct and thoughts of others. How much time he gains, who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only at what he does himself, to make it just and holy. The meaning cuts deep. Most human energy is spent in observation of others, judging, comparing, envying, reacting. The Stoic withdraws from this noise. They reclaim that energy and turn it inward, where real progress occurs. To never complain is to recognize the futility of dramatizing reality. Anger does not change facts. Complaints do not fix obstacles. Only discipline reshapes conditions. The Stoic has no interest in emotional performances. They know that energy spent lamenting is energy stolen from action. They prefer the sharpness of silence over the dullness of reaction. To never settle is to refuse self-betrayal. The comfort of mediocrity seduces the tired mind. The Stoic resists this comfort as a form of discipline. They understand that temporary peace gained through surrender leads to long-term unrest. They would rather endure tension in pursuit of excellence than rest in the ease of stagnation. This is how inner standards rise. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to count blessings rather than chase fantasies. Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess. Gratitude is the counterweight to complaint. When the mind focuses on what is missing, it multiplies discontent. When it focuses on what is present, it finds strength to act. The Stoic: every inconvenience is treated as injustice. Every delay is taken personally. The Stoic rejects this fragility. They see that nature owes them nothing, and that resilience is self-created. Life is indifferent, but that indifference is liberating. The disciplined person learns to operate without depending on approval or smoothness. They train their will to hold shape under resistance. Difficulty is not an interruption, it is the path itself. The Stoic knows this and therefore meets difficulty with respect. They do not exaggerate its weight, they simply move through it. Those who expect comfort crumble when faced with difficulty. Those who expect difficulty remain calm. The difference is preparation. The Stoic practices hardship mentally before it arrives, so when it does, they are already familiar with its form. To never quit means to maintain alignment with one's highest standard despite exhaustion. The Stoic understands that fatigue is part of transformation. They do not mistake weariness for weakness. Every repetition through fatigue deepens control. What feels like breaking is often the beginning of endurance. Strength is built quietly, through consistent effort, applied without recognition. To never complain is to refuse to poison the mind with negativity. The Stoic treats words as instruments of focus. Complaining scatters focus, and the disciplined person guards attention like a scarce resource. They use words with precision, directing them toward clarity, not chaos. Speech becomes an extension of control, and silence becomes a tool for discipline. To never settle is to keep the spirit in motion. Settling often disguises itself as acceptance, but true acceptance is strength, not surrender. The Stoic accepts what cannot be changed, but relentlessly improves what can. They do not wait for motivation, they operate from will. They understand that progress is not built in surges, but in long sequences of silent consistency. Persistence without complaint produces power that cannot be faked. It builds confidence independent of praise. The one who stays disciplined through obscurity becomes formidable in visibility. The external world cannot grant them strength because it did not build it. This kind of inner construction is what the Stoics called virtue, the alignment of thought, action, and principle. Attention is the currency of life. Whatever receives it grows stronger. When it is spent on others' opinions, the self weakens. When it is invested in personal order, strength accumulates. The Stoic guards this attention like a soldier guards rations in a siege. They do not allow gossip, jealousy, or comparison to consume what could build discipline. They understand that every moment spent measuring another is stolen from the shaping of one's own mind. The modern world thrives on comparison. Every digital surface invites the mind outward, into approval, envy, distraction. The Stoic moves in the opposite direction. They observe themselves, not as a critic, but as a craftsman examining their work. They measure progress by clarity of action, not by status or noise. Their peace grows in direct proportion to how little they care about being seen. When one stops looking sideways, they begin to see forward. The mind regains linear focus. Decisions become clean. The fog of imitation lifts. Most people act as mirrors reflecting what they see others doing. The Stoic acts as a source. They generate conduct from principle, not imitation. This independence is the first form of freedom. The person who minds their own path gains time, and with it, depth. Time scattered across opinions never accumulates into mastery. But when gathered into purpose, it becomes momentum. The Stoics' day is organized around duty, not comparison. They measure themselves against their own potential, not against another's performance. This self-referential focus is what allows genuine progress. Comparison leads to bitterness because it is endless. There will always be someone ahead or behind. The Stoic sees this cycle as a trap. They do not resent success in others, nor celebrate their failure. They treat both with indifference. Each person carries their own struggle. The only useful question is, am I living according to reason right now? Those who constantly monitor others lose the strength to improve themselves. Judgment becomes entertainment, and entertainment breeds decay. The Stoic refuses to participate in this passive consumption. They turn observation into self-examination. Every thought directed outward is redirected inward. How do I act? What do I control? What must I correct? Through this practice, comparison transforms into discipline. A person who keeps to their own path becomes less reactive. They no longer interpret others' actions as personal signals. Praise does not inflate them. Criticism does not disturb them. They understand that perception is filtered through the minds of others, and that no one can fully see their internal order. Freedom begins when external opinion loses weight. The pursuit of self-control replaces the pursuit of approval. The Stoic trains to be unseen if necessary, as long as their conduct remains just. To be just is to act in accordance with truth, not trend. The world changes fashions of thought and virtue. The Stoic stays anchored. They move through the noise with quiet precision, guided by their own principles. Isolation from comparison does not mean isolation from humanity. It means detachment from distraction. The Stoic still observes others with compassion, but without imitation. They study strength, not popularity. They learn from wisdom, not from spectacle. This selective perception allows them to absorb what is useful and discard what is corrupting. The greatest gain from ignoring others' judgment is peace of mind. The mental static of constant observation disappears. Clarity expands in its place. The Stoics' energy becomes focused, deliberate, and efficient. They no longer waste motion reacting to what others think. They spend it refining what they know is right. In this, time itself seems to slow down. When attention is reclaimed, one begins to see how much of life was wasted in invisible comparison. Subtle envy, quiet resentment, small self-conscious adjustments. All of these dissolve when one lives according to principle. The Stoic becomes light and efficient, no longer burdened by invisible competition. Every act becomes cleaner because it originates from conviction, not performance. Then comes the second instruction. Don't be ashamed of needing help. You have a duty to fulfill, just like a soldier on the wall of battle. So what if you are injured and can't climb up without another soldier's help? The Stoic ideal is not isolation, it is interdependence governed by humility. To seek help is not weakness, it is recognition of the collective nature of human strength. Pride masquerades as strength, but often it is fear of appearing small. The Stoic sees this clearly. They accept assistance when reason dictates it, not when ego allows it. They understand that duty outweighs image. If the mission requires another's hand, to reject it out of pride is betrayal of duty. The disciplined person separates vanity from virtue. Modern culture confuses independence with self-sufficiency. The Stoic knows that even the strongest depend on others. The soldier, the philosopher, the leader, all stand on a wall built by many hands. To accept help honors the structure of cooperation. To reject it denies nature's design. Humans are meant to aid one another toward shared order. Needing help does not reduce strength, it extends it. The Stoic does not see assistance as rescue, but as reinforcement. They remain responsible for their conduct even when supported. Gratitude replaces shame. The disciplined person thanks those who help them and continues the duty with renewed composure. This humility fortifies rather than weakens. The ego resists dependence because it fears exposure. The Stoic dismantles that fear through logic. If the goal is to fulfill duty and help accelerates it, then refusing help is irrational. They strip emotion from the equation. Pride, embarrassment, fear, these are distractions. The only question is, what serves the mission? The answer determines the action. Accepting help requires courage equal to offering it. Both acts demand honesty. To ask for aid means admitting limitation. To give aid means carrying another's burden. The Stoic engages both with dignity. They see no hierarchy between giver and receiver, only collaboration within reason. Strength circulates through cooperation, not through isolation. When one learns to accept help, they learn to trust. Not blind trust in people, but trust in order, that others too have roles to fulfill. The Stoic views humanity as a system of parts. Each part strengthens the whole. To reject help is to deny another their duty. To accept it is to honor their place in the larger design. The metaphor of the soldier on the wall is precise. The Stoic stands guard over their duty. If injured, they do not leave the wall in pride. They call to another soldier, climb with assistance, and return to position. The goal is not to appear strong, it is to remain useful. This attitude creates invincibility because it prioritizes function over image. Self-reliance and humility coexist in Stoic philosophy. One must be strong enough to act alone when required, and wise enough to accept aid when necessary. This balance prevents both arrogance and dependency. The disciplined mind moves fluidly between solitude and cooperation, always guided by reason, never by vanity. The person who rejects help out of pride isolates themselves from strength. The person who accepts it with gratitude expands their reach. The Stoic sees community as an extension of virtue. Helping and being helped are both forms of duty. Each maintains the structure of society as surely as each stone maintains a wall. To accept aid also sharpens compassion. When one has received help, they understand the humility it requires. They become quicker to assist others in return, not out of pity, but out of recognition. The cycle of strength continues. The Stoic strength is therefore not solitary, it is shared and multiplied. The combination of these two lessons, ignore comparison, accept help, creates equilibrium. The first removes envy, the second removes pride. What remains is pure focus on duty. The Stoic moves without distraction and accepts support without shame. Their attention stays fixed on what must be done, and their humility keeps them aligned with reality. Comparison and pride are the twin illusions of ego. One says, "I am less than others." The other says, "I need no one." Both distort truth. The Stoic replaces them with clarity. I am responsible for myself, and I am part of something larger. This perspective eliminates the need for validation and the fear of dependence. In practice, these teachings form a rhythm, inward focus for discipline, part of something larger. This perspective eliminates the need for validation and the fear of dependence. In practice, these teachings form a rhythm, inward focus for discipline, outward openness for cooperation. The Stoic alternates between self-reliance and shared effort. This rhythm mirrors nature's balance, root and branch, stillness and motion, individual and collective. To master both is to live in harmony with the design of the world. Freedom from comparison brings peace. Freedom from pride brings strength. The mind, once distracted by others' judgment, now becomes anchored in purpose. The same mind once afraid to ask for help becomes secure in unity. Together, these freedoms form resilience that cannot be shaken by appearance or circumstance. The Stoic does not measure their worth through the eyes of others. They measure it through the integrity of action. Nor do they hide behind the illusion of self-sufficiency. They understand that a mission fulfilled through shared strength honors reason itself. In this union of independence and humility, life becomes both disciplined and humane. Each act performed without comparison and each help accepted without shame refines the soul. The Stoic becomes both precise and kind, disciplined and connected. Their life serves as quiet proof that strength does not isolate, it integrates. They move through the world as a part of its order, not above or beneath it. The modern world rewards performance and punishes vulnerability. The Stoic rejects both extremes. They seek truth instead of image. They live neither for admiration nor for pity. They focus on conduct, on justice, on contribution. When assistance comes, they receive it with gratitude. When success comes, they meet it with restraint. Their stability rests on reason alone. The one who gains time by ignoring others and strength by accepting help stands in perfect equilibrium. They are free from distraction and free from vanity. Their attention flows toward action. Their humility binds them to others in purpose. This is how a person becomes both grounded and ascendant, rooted in discipline, rising through unity. To live this way is to gain a different kind of strength, silent, efficient, and unshakable. The Stoic walks among noise and ego, yet remains untouched. They act cleanly, ask for aid when needed, and return to duty without hesitation. This is not coldness, it is composure. It is the peace that comes from seeing clearly where the self ends and where cooperation begins. In this clarity, life simplifies. There is no comparison, no shame, no pride, only action aligned with principle. The Stoic, having learned to look inward and lean outward, fulfills their duty in full. They stand firm on the wall, untroubled by who watches or who assists. Their only focus, to keep the position, to serve the order, to live by reason until the end, to live as if each day were the last, is not to chase urgency, but to eliminate waste. Marcus Aurelius called this the mark of perfection of character, to spend each day without frenzy, laziness, or pretending. The Stoic interpretation is not dramatic, it is disciplined. The end of life is not feared, but used as a measure of quality. If this were your last day, would you allow distraction to rule it? Would you act out of vanity? Would you postpone what is right? The Stoic answers these questions daily through conduct, not emotion. To live without frenzy is to move with control. Frenzy is the signature of a mind untethered by principle. It is speed without direction, noise without structure. The Stoic's calm is not idleness, it is precision. They act with the same rhythm as nature, slow when reflection is needed, fast when duty demands. Their pace follows necessity, not impulse. To live without laziness is to respect the gift of strength. Laziness is not rest, it is neglect. It consumes potential through avoidance. The Stoic rests strategically, but never escapes responsibility. They see every idle hour as a decision, to grow or to decay. Their energy is preserved through order, their motivation through clarity. Duty replaces mood. To live without pretending is to live without masks. The Stoic has no use for appearances. They aim to be, not to seem. Pretending is a waste of life, because it builds nothing real. The person who constructs an image must constantly defend it. The Stoic, being authentic, is untouchable. They cannot lose what they do not fake. Honesty becomes armor. Perfection of character, then, is a state of alignment between inner and outer life. The mind, the word, and the act form one structure. Each supports the other. When this alignment is achieved, anxiety disappears. The person ceases to negotiate between what they know is right and what they display. Integrity simplifies existence. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." The Stoic knows that the self contains all the resources required for endurance. External help may guide, but internal strength must lead. The mind, when disciplined, becomes a reservoir that replenishes itself through reflection. Every difficulty is an opportunity to dig deeper into this well. Most people search outward for strength, approval, possessions, comfort. The Stoic searches inward. They understand that external stability is fragile, internal stability is permanent. By looking within, they connect with the rational principle that governs all things. This connection is not mystical, it is functional. The same logic that orders the universe orders the mind capable of discipline. Self-reflection sharpens strength because it exposes illusion. When one looks deeply, excuses dissolve. Fear, resentment, and envy lose their authority. The Stoic studies their reactions without judgment and corrects them with reason. Each self-examination deepens the foundation. Over time, the inner fortress becomes unassailable. To dig within is an act of construction. The deeper one looks, the more power is uncovered. Marcus spoke of a fountain of goodness, ever ready to flow if one continues digging. Virtue is not installed from the outside, it is revealed from within. Every human being possesses this spring, but most cover it with layers of distraction and pride. The Stoic removes those layers through simplicity and silence. Change is the engine of life. Frightened of change, but what can exist without it? Marcus asked. The Stoic welcomes transformation because they understand it as the nature of existence. To resist change is to resist being alive. Growth, healing, learning, all require alteration. To fear it is to fear the essence of the universe itself. Change destroys only what refuses to adapt. The Stoic flows with it deliberately. They do not mourn the old form, they honor it and move forward. Every loss clears space for development. The mind that accepts change ceases to suffer from it. It no longer treats transformation as chaos, but as continuity. This is how serenity and progress coexist. Nature demonstrates this truth constantly. Firewood must burn for warmth, food must be broken down to nourish, and muscle must tear to strengthen. Nothing vital remains static. The Stoic mirrors this principle internally. They burn away habits, break down ignorance, and rebuild character through repetition. Change becomes their craft. Fear of change comes from attachment to identity. The Stoic does not cling to who they were yesterday. They shed obsolete versions of themselves willingly. Each day offers new evidence, new trials, new corrections. To stay rigid is to decay. To remain fluid is to grow. In this way, adaptability becomes the highest form of strength. The disciplined person knows that every transformation requires discomfort. They accept it as the price of clarity. Pain signals evolution. Resistance signals stagnation. By embracing this law, the Stoic transcends anxiety about the future. They see themselves as a participant in nature's process, not a victim of it. Life ceases to be something endured. It becomes something shaped. Marcus wrote, "Often, injustice lies in what you aren't doing, not only in what you are doing." This thought expands Stoic duty beyond restraint into action. Virtue is not only the avoidance of harm, but the presence of contribution. To remain silent when courage is required is a subtle form of injustice. To neglect one's potential is to wrong oneself and others. The Stoic understands that passivity can corrupt as deeply as wrongdoing. When opportunity for virtue arises, inaction becomes betrayal. Justice demands participation. The disciplined person acts according to reason even when convenience suggests retreat. They do not confuse stillness with indifference. Their stillness is strategic, not apathetic. Moral laziness often hides behind neutrality. The Stoic exposes it by asking, "Is my inaction serving order or avoiding discomfort?" This question reveals truth. Every omission has weight. To live rightly is to engage where one's principles require it, even when the cost is personal. Duty is not optional when integrity is at stake. Action guided by virtue sustains the mind. A person who acts rightly rests easily. The one who withholds action from fear or pride remains restless. The Stoic prefers fatigue from effort to guilt from avoidance. They measure themselves not by outcome, but by fidelity to principle. Injustice is prevented not by intention, but by movement. The fountain of goodness within the self is activated through action. Reflection alone is not enough. It must be followed by conduct. Every good impulse left unused weakens. Every good act performed strengthens. The Stoic builds moral endurance through consistent small actions rooted in principle. This quiet repetition becomes character. To dig deep within oneself is to discover not only strength, but kindness. The The Stoic recognizes that goodness is not sentiment. It is clarity expressed through fairness, patience, and restraint. This goodness flows naturally once the debris of ego is removed. It is always ready, waiting for attention. The disciplined person keeps digging so that this stream never dries. The person who lives each day as if it were their last wastes no time on pretense. They do not delay kindness, postpone effort, or hoard attention for later. They act now, speak truth now, improve now. This immediacy produces serenity because nothing essential is left undone. Death loses its sting when life has been fully used. To avoid frenzy, laziness, and pretending requires awareness. The Stoic trains this awareness through constant recollection. Life is finite, action is sacred, integrity is non-negotiable. They move through each hour conscious of its worth. The trivial dissolves in the presence of such focus. What remains attention? Did I resist change? Did I serve where I could? This continuous introspection replaces guilt with growth. The day ends with order, not regret. Fear of change diminishes when one sees its necessity in every living process. Even decay serves creation. The Stoic sees that endings feed beginnings, that pain shapes understanding, that loss refines appreciation. This awareness transforms anxiety into gratitude. Life becomes a sequence of transformations, each meaningful and necessary. The perfection of character is not stillness, it is harmony with movement. The Stoic maintains internal order amid external flux. They understand that the self, like nature, must breathe, expanding through experience, contracting through reflection. This rhythm keeps the soul alive. To resist it is to suffocate under the illusion of permanence. Each day offers a chance to practice justice, not only through restraint, but through initiative, to help, to speak, to build, to defend. These are extensions of Stoic virtue. Action completes contemplation. The disciplined person does not philosophize about goodness, they enact it. Their wisdom is measured in deeds. The fountain of goodness, once uncovered, renews itself endlessly. It is not depleted by use, it is strengthened by it. Every act of courage deepens it. Every act of kindness clarifies it. The Stoic trusts this process. They no longer seek moral energy from admiration or reward. They draw it directly from the inner source. Perfection of character is not a static state to be achieved. It is a dynamic practice to be maintained. It lives in the daily choice to act with purpose, to think with order, to accept change, to resist pretense. The Stoic's perfection is not flawlessness, it is constancy. It is the refusal to let emotion or circumstance corrupt reason. To look inward, embrace change, and act justly are not separate teachings, they are one. Each supports the others. Introspection fuels adaptability. Adaptability fuels justice. Justice fuels peace. Together, they create a life that does not depend on condition for meaning. The Stoic becomes whole because they are aligned with nature's motion. When the mind learns to look inward for strength, outward for duty, and forward without fear, it becomes unshakable. This triad of awareness replaces anxiety with command. The Stoic then lives as nature intended, fluid, rational, and resilient. Every challenge becomes a continuation of purpose, not an interruption of it. To live each day as if it were the last is to live without delay. To look within is to discover inexhaustible strength. To embrace change is to cooperate with existence. To act justly is to prevent decay of the soul. To dig for goodness is to reveal one's true nature. These are not separate paths. They form the architecture of the disciplined life. The Stoic who practices them becomes a calm force in a turbulent world. They no longer seek refuge from reality, because they have learned to live within it rightly. They carry their own light into each day and leave no act unfinished, no word wasted, no principle compromised. In this state, every day is complete, every change is welcome, and every moment is lived fully in accordance with reason. Endurance is the forge of strength. Seneca wrote, "Fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men." The principle is ancient and exact. Only through exposure to heat does matter reveal its purity. The same law applies to the human spirit. Comfort conceals weakness, adversity reveals it. When life ignites the fire of hardship, the Stoic does not retreat. They allow it to refine them. The flames that consume the unprepared temper the disciplined into clarity. To endure suffering well is to convert pain into instruction. Each trial strips away illusion and reveals structure. The Stoic understands that suffering is not an enemy, but a mirror. It reflects the strength or frailty of one's philosophy. The mind that clings to comfort breaks easily. The mind trained in discomfort becomes resilient. Gold does not complain when placed in fire. It simply becomes pure. The disciplined person learns to do the same. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials. The Stoic does not romanticize suffering, but respects its necessity. Friction is the process through which potential becomes excellence. Ease polishes nothing. To remove resistance is to remove growth. The sharp edge of difficulty carves out refinement. Every inconvenience is an invitation to rise above instinct and meet reality with reason. Suffering is inevitable, but its meaning is chosen. The undisciplined see it as punishment. The Stoic sees it as practice. Through repetition of composure under stress, endurance becomes second nature. The disciplined mind no longer interprets hardship as chaos, but as continuity. Every challenge fits within the larger system of self-command. Life ceases to appear hostile when one accepts that pain is a form of education. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This observation exposes the true source of torment, the mind's anticipation of pain. The event itself is often brief. It is the rehearsal that exhausts us. The Stoic limits suffering by restricting imagination. They train the mind to remain with facts, not fantasies. Fear, once deprived of imagination, loses its force. The majority of pain dissolves when no longer multiplied by projection. The mind that fears the future suffers it twice, once in thought, once in experience. The Stoic endures it once. This restraint is not denial, it is discipline. The person who focuses on the present retains full strength to face what comes. Worry divides energy. Action consolidates it. By refusing to suffer in advance, the Stoic remains unbroken even when the blow arrives. Fire tests gold is not only a metaphor, it is a method. Life will expose what is hollow. Every adversity reveals what one truly believes. Words collapse in heat. Principles endure. The Stoic prepares for this by practicing hardship voluntarily. Cold, hunger, solitude, these are not punishments but training. By confronting small fires willingly, they learn to stand calmly in larger ones. Suffering introduces a person to themselves. It reveals the boundaries of courage and the depth of self-deception. When stripped of ease, one's philosophy becomes visible. The Stoic values this revelation. They would rather know their weakness now than be destroyed by it later. Honesty with oneself is the foundation of strength. The fire burns away pretense, leaving only what is real. Purpose directs endurance. Seneca wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Direction transforms hardship into progress. Without it, all suffering feels random. The Stoic defines their purpose clearly so that every challenge can be measured against it. Pain without meaning is torment. Pain aligned with purpose is transformation. The one who knows their destination can endure any storm. Uncertainty magnifies pain. The person who lacks a defined goal is tossed by every current, unable to interpret resistance as guidance. The Stoic, with purpose fixed, interprets difficulty as navigation. Each obstacle corrects their course. The same wind that destroys the aimless propels the directed. Clarity of aim transforms adversity into fuel. To suffer without direction is to drift. The Stoic refuses drift. They determine their principles early: virtue, discipline, reason, and let those serve as coordinates. Whatever strengthens those values is accepted, whatever weakens them is rejected. In this way they remain steady even in confusion. No external turbulence can overturn an internal compass. Every trial demands an answer. Complaining is a refusal to answer. Endurance is acceptance of the question. The Stoic chooses the latter. They treat each hardship as an examination of principle. Will they act according to reason or impulse? Will they maintain composure or collapse into emotion? Each test, passed or failed, refines understanding. Failure, when studied, becomes a second kind of victory. Suffering becomes intolerable only when it is seen as senseless. The Stoic gives it form by aligning it with progress. Pain is treated as tuition for wisdom. Nothing is wasted, not even loss. Each misfortune teaches a principle that peace never could. Comfort hides the truth. Discomfort reveals it. Through pain, the Stoic learns gratitude, patience, humility, and proportion. To be tested is to be trusted by nature. The universe subjects only what it intends to strengthen. The Stoic interprets adversity as a sign of potential, not persecution. Weakness is not punished, it is purified. The disciplined person therefore meets difficulty with calm, seeing in it the process of their own refinement. They do not ask for lighter burdens, they ask for stronger shoulders. Endurance is not resignation, it is strategy. The Stoic endures not because they are powerless, but because they are powerful enough to choose restraint. Reaction wastes energy, patience conserves it. The fire burns either way. The difference lies in whether one fights it or uses it. The disciplined person uses it. They allow pain to sculpt, not destroy. Suffering tests bravery by demanding consistency. Fear asks the mind to retreat. Reason commands it to stay. The Stoic stays. They accept fear as sensation, but do not obey it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the correct relationship to it. The brave feel the same heat as the fearful, but interpret it differently. To them, discomfort is confirmation of purpose. Fearless people are not untouched by suffering. They are ungoverned by it. They feel pain but remain functional within it. This functionality under pressure is the essence of Stoic mastery. When emotion flares, they observe it without surrender. Observation replaces panic. Distance from impulse restores order. From that order, wisdom acts cleanly. The Stoic measures progress not by comfort, but by response. How quickly do they regain calm after disruption? How evenly do they act under strain? These are the indicators of growth. Emotional turbulence will always occur, but composure shortens its duration. The goal is not to eliminate pain, but to reduce its control. Each recovery strengthens the foundation. Trials are not random, they are calibration. Each difficulty adjusts perception closer to truth. The Stoic welcomes this correction. When something is lost, they examine attachment. When they fail, they examine preparation. When they are betrayed, they examine expectation. The external event becomes secondary. The internal lesson becomes central. Seneca's wisdom bridges endurance and clarity. The fire that tests gold also illuminates. Through pain, vision sharpens. The disciplined possession. What cannot be taken, virtue, reason, endurance, becomes their wealth. Pain is not permanent unless repeated by memory. The Stoic ends suffering by refusing to feed it with thought. Once the event passes, they release it completely. Reflection remains, but resentment does not. They learn and continue. This capacity to move cleanly from experience to experience defines emotional strength. The mind that clings suffers eternally. The mind that releases lives freely. Fire purifies, but it also clarifies. Under pressure, priorities rearrange. The Stoic uses hardship to identify what truly matters. When stripped of comfort, they discover which values survive. Through deprivation, they find sufficiency. Through silence, they find presence. The unnecessary burns away until only essence remains. A person who has endured pain consciously becomes steady. The unpredictability of life no longer threatens them. They have learned that the worst can be survived, and that fear itself is more painful than the event. This realization builds confidence deeper than optimism. It is not hope that sustains them, but understanding. Purpose prevents despair. A ship without destination drifts even in gentle seas. One with purpose cuts through storms. The Stoic holds their direction inwardly, even when outer visibility is gone. Their aim is not dependent on circumstance, but on conviction. This is why no wind can destroy them. It can only reveal their skill. To suffer with purpose is to cooperate with nature's logic. The Stoic accepts that every transformation requires destruction of form. The old self burns to create space for the new. This is not tragedy, but design. Just as a gem's beauty is released through abrasion, the spirit's brilliance appears through endurance. Growth and pain are the same process viewed from different distances. Discipline makes suffering efficient. The undisciplined suffer twice, first through fear, then through experience. The disciplined suffer once, with clarity. They take what is useful, discard the rest, and continue forward. This precision of response creates peace even amid pressure. They are not numbed, they are focused. Seneca's teaching dismantles illusions about hardship. It is not cruelty, but necessity. The absence of trial breeds fragility. The Stoic would rather face storms and learn to sail than drift forever in calm waters. They understand that courage cannot develop in theory. It must be summoned under threat. Adversity is the classroom of virtue. The wise see suffering as temporary structure, something to be passed through, not lived in. They use it to sharpen, then let it fall away. No bitterness remains, only insight. Pain, once endured correctly, leaves wisdom in its place. This is why the Stoic grows quieter with age. They have learned that every wound, when understood, becomes instruction. When the mind ceases to fear pain, freedom begins. No circumstance can enslave a person who has made peace with hardship. The Stoic reaches this state through repetition of courage. Each test becomes less frightening, each recovery faster. The fire loses its terror, it becomes familiar. What once burned now illuminates. Trials shape perspective. The disciplined person no longer asks, "Why is this happening to me?" but "What can this build within me?" The shift in question transforms despair into direction. By searching for use instead of fairness, they stay aligned with reason. Fairness belongs to the external world. Use belongs to the internal. The latter is always available. A person refined by hardship develops silent authority. They do not speak of strength. They embody it. Their calm under pressure becomes influence. Others seek their presence because it stabilizes chaos. This is the natural consequence of endurance mastered. It radiates peace. The one who has been tested becomes a source of steadiness for those who have not. The Stoic does not glorify suffering. They outgrow the need to fear it. They accept it as one accepts weather, necessary, impartial, transient. When storms come, they adjust sails. When skies clear, they continue. Their peace is portable. It does not depend on climate, but on character. The same inner discipline that faced fire faces calm with equal grace. The refinement of character through hardship is a universal law. Fire, friction, and endurance are the elements of excellence. To resist them is to remain unformed. To embrace them is to become defined. Seneca's wisdom points to this timeless process. Gold must burn, the gem must be polished, the brave must be tested. In this crucible, humanity fulfills its potential. To live without fear of fire is to live without fear of life. The Stoic accepts both as part of the same design. Every flame that touches them leaves light behind. Every scar becomes evidence of learning. Through these marks, they carry proof of transformation. The spirit, once tested and purified, becomes untouchable by fate. Plato wrote, "The beginning is the most important part of the work." The Stoic understands this not as encouragement, but as instruction. The beginning sets direction, and direction determines destiny. To begin without clarity is to invite waste. To begin with purpose is to guarantee strength. Every act of discipline, every effort of character begins at the same point, the first decision to start. Without this moment, all potential remains dormant. Beginnings are sacred because they contain everything in seed form. A single decision, repeated daily, shapes the entire structure of a life. The Stoic does not wait for inspiration to begin. They begin to summon it. Momentum follows the act, not the wish. The person who starts immediately separates themselves from the mass that hesitates. The courage to begin transforms uncertainty into order. The modern world encourages endless preparation. People wait for the perfect plan, the right time, the ideal conditions. The Stoic sees the danger in delay. Waiting becomes decay. They act with the understanding that imperfection in motion is better than perfection postponed. The first step may be small, but it establishes gravity. Once movement begins, it becomes self-sustaining. The beginning tests courage more than skill. To start something meaningful is to expose oneself to fear, criticism, and doubt. The Stoic accepts this vulnerability as a part of the path. Fear does not vanish before the start. It vanishes after repetition. To act while afraid is the first victory. Each repetition weakens hesitation until it no longer holds weight. The beginning also demands patience. Progress at first is invisible. The Stoic knows that every lasting structure grows underground before rising. The roots of habit deepen unseen. Those who expect immediate proof of success abandon the process before it matures. The disciplined person continues without applause, knowing that persistence itself is the reward. To begin is to commit to resistance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Every obstacle contains the instruction for its own overcoming. The Stoic does not wish for a smooth path. They wish for a strong will. Each barrier met with composure becomes part of progress. What resists movement shapes it. Obstacles are not interruptions. They are integration points, life tests resolved to determine authenticity. Those who only move when it is easy are carried by circumstance, not guided by principle. The Stoic transforms impediments into instruments. The same event that weakens the impatient refines the disciplined. What slows others strengthens them. The mind must be trained to see opportunity where others see inconvenience. The Stoic accomplishes this by removing emotional language from perception. Nothing is good or bad, only material for action. By neutralizing judgment, they reclaim control. The world cannot insult or injure the one who interprets calmly. From that calm, wisdom directs response. Marcus Aurelius taught, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." The simplicity of this command hides its depth. The Stoic divides all hardship into two categories, endurable and unavoidable. If it can be endured, they endure it. If it cannot, they accept it. Complaint adds nothing to either outcome. Endurance preserves strength. Complaint dissolves it. To endure is not to suppress emotion, but to channel it into stability. The Stoic feels the same pain as others, but interprets it differently. Pain is information, not injustice. It indicates resistance, not ruin. The disciplined person converts this signal into adjustment. Endurance becomes intelligent when it refines behavior instead of consuming energy in protest. Complaining is a leak in the structure of will. It weakens focus by diverting attention to what cannot be changed. The Stoic repairs this leak by enforcing silence. They use speech for strategy, not sympathy. The less one speaks of hardship, the stronger one becomes within it. Restraint turns suffering into solitude, and solitude into power. What stands in the way becomes the way because resistance forces adaptation. Muscles grow only under strain. The mind follows the same law. The Stoic approaches adversity as a craftsman approaches material. They shape it. When blocked, they redirect. When delayed, they prepare. Every obstacle, properly engaged, becomes training. The world does not promise ease, only opportunity for mastery. The Stoic meets this fact with gratitude. They know that difficulty is evidence of movement. Only the static face no resistance. Progress and pain are inseparable. To walk forward through both is the discipline that builds unshakable character. Beginnings are often disguised as obstacles. The moment one decides to act, resistance awakens. The Stoic expects this. They treat the first challenge not as a deterrent, but as confirmation that the path is real. Ease deceives. Friction clarifies. The one who continues through the first barrier proves their seriousness. A person who delays beginning waits for courage that only beginning can create. The Stoic reverses this logic. They act first and allow courage to appear afterward. Each act of initiation weakens fear's influence. Confidence is built through evidence, not intention. Every small start becomes a declaration against hesitation. To begin each day as if it were the first is to remain alive to possibility. The Stoic renews purpose daily. They do not rely on yesterday's effort to justify today's inertia. Every morning demands a new beginning. The disciplined person treats each dawn as an opportunity to refine what was imperfect, to recommit to principle, to begin again with greater clarity. Endurance is the continuation of beginning. To endure well is to begin again under new conditions. The Stoic sees each difficulty as a new starting point for strength. What others call persistence, they call renewal. The act of beginning repeats in every act of endurance. That the obstacle is the path. Frustration disappears. Anger is replaced by curiosity. How can this serve? What can this teach? The Stoic reframes every difficulty through this question. This transformation of perception changes the experience of life itself. Problems become puzzles. Setbacks become lessons. Existence becomes training. The one who endures without complaint aligns with nature. The universe itself operates through resistance. Pressure forms stars. Gravity holds planets. Friction creates light. The Stoic mirrors this law internally. They understand that endurance is not unnatural. It is participation in the fundamental rhythm of being. To begin is to participate in creation. Every act of will echoes the structure of the cosmos, order emerging from chaos. The Stoic sees this symmetry and takes responsibility for their part. They bring reason into disorder, focus into noise. Each disciplined beginning is an imitation of nature's own pattern, deliberate formation through persistence. Fear of failure paralyzes those who misunderstand its role. The Stoic knows that failure is not the opposite of success, but its ingredient. Every failure clarifies method, exposes weakness, and instructs the will. To begin despite fear is to engage in this refining process. Each attempt makes the next cleaner, stronger, more efficient. Beginnings are moments of truth. They reveal the gap between intention and action. The Stoic closes that gap through immediacy. Thought and deed must align quickly. The longer one hesitates, the weaker the will becomes. Action, even imperfect, preserves integrity. In motion, clarity sharpens. Waiting clouds the mind. The impediment to action becomes the way when one accepts it as material. The Stoic does not fight reality. They cooperate with it. When a plan collapses, they adapt. When strength wanes, they rest strategically. Their focus remains on progress, not preference. This flexibility is not compromise, it is intelligence. The complaint is a waste because it imagines an alternate world where obstacles do not exist. The Stoic lives in the world as it is. They do not require it to be otherwise. Their peace comes from alignment with truth, not escape from it. To endure reality as it stands is the highest form of discipline. Every beginning will eventually meet resistance. Every resistance will demand endurance. Together, these form the rhythm of mastery. The Stoic understands that no lasting achievement occurs without this alternation. To begin boldly and endure calmly, this is the formula for an unshakable life. Plato's wisdom on beginnings and Marcus Aurelius's insights on endurance meet at the same center: direction and composure. The first ensures purpose, the second ensures perseverance. To lack either is to drift. With both, one can build anything: character, craft, legacy. The Stoic sees beginnings as moral obligations. To delay starting what one knows must be done is to betray reason. Action validates knowledge. Without motion, virtue remains theoretical. Every principle must be enacted to exist. The disciplined person begins immediately because truth demands embodiment, not contemplation. Endurance, in turn, preserves virtue once begun. The world will test sincerity. Those who start with enthusiasm often end with excuses. The Stoic finishes with the same steadiness they began. Their endurance is quiet and consistent. They measure progress not by bursts of energy, but by depth of persistence. To stop complaining is to redirect attention from injustice to capability. The Stoic does not ask, "Why this?" but "How now?" This shift dissolves despair. Every ounce of energy used for protest is reinvested in adaptation. The result is empowerment. The world does not shrink the Stoic, it sharpens them. The beginning is not confined to time, it is a state of mind. Every moment can become a new beginning when met with fresh resolve. The disciplined person practices this renewal constantly. They restart in thought, in effort, in focus. This constant beginning keeps the mind young and the will alive. Endurance is the art of sustained beginning. It is starting again within the same challenge, refusing to let fatigue dictate finality. The Stoic becomes stronger not by avoiding exhaustion, but by learning to recover within it. Each return to effort is proof of will. This resilience turns ordinary persistence into mastery. Obstacles polish the will like stones polish steel. Without friction, edge dulls. The Stoic welcomes this sharpening. They see the obstacle not as punishment, but as participation in nature's process. Everything alive grows through resistance. Everything valuable is tested. Endurance, therefore, is cooperation with reality. The one who begins decisively and endures quietly develops momentum that cannot be replicated by talent alone. Talent without endurance fades. Endurance without beginning stagnates. The Stoic unites both through action governed by principle. Each day becomes a cycle of initiation, resistance, and renewal. When complaint ends, gratitude begins. The disciplined person sees opportunity hidden in hardship. They thank the difficulty for revealing capacity. They thank resistance for defining strength. This gratitude dissolves bitterness. It transforms endurance into contentment. To live this way is to be free even in struggle. Plato reminds us that the first step carries the weight of destiny. Marcus reminds us that the obstacle defines it. Together they form the complete cycle of growth. Begin, endure, transform. The Stoic lives inside this cycle consciously. They start with intention, meet resistance with calm, and emerge refined by both. Each beginning contains its own fire, each obstacle its own lesson. The Stoic moves through both without excess emotion. They begin, they endure, they adapt. Complaint fades, excuses vanish, and what remains is clarity, the calm certainty that nothing stands in the way except perception. And when perception is mastered, the way is always open. Difficulty is the mirror of character. Epictetus wrote, "Difficulties show a person's character. When the path turns steep, the truth of a person is revealed. Comfort hides the essence of the soul. Struggle exposes it." The Stoic does not curse this exposure. They welcome it. Difficulty is not cruelty, it is clarity. It shows whether the foundation was built on principle or preference. In ease, anyone can seem virtuous. Under strain, only the genuine remain composed. The measure of a person is not what they say when rested, but how they act when burdened. Adversity strips away the borrowed strength of routine and demands something internal. The Stoic sees this as the highest test of self-command. They train not to avoid hardship, but to perform under it. When pressure arrives, they observe their reactions calmly. Every difficulty becomes a mirror, every response a reflection. Those who resent hardship misread its role. Epictetus saw difficulties as a forge for excellence. Just as an athlete grows through resistance, so the mind grows through challenge. Without obstacles, virtue would remain theoretical. Each trial offers a stage for the Stoic to practice courage, patience, and composure. The greater the difficulty, the greater the opportunity for proof. He wrote, "The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it." This is not a celebration of struggle for its own sake, but recognition that true strength can only be demonstrated through it. Ease never produced greatness. The Stoic does not seek suffering, but they do not flee it. They accept it as the necessary cost of mastery. The fire that burns others refines them. The harder the climb, the clearer the summit. The disciplined person learns to approach difficulty with dignity. Complaints are replaced with concentration. Panic gives way to posture. Each hardship becomes part of training. The Stoics' aim is not survival alone, but transformation. They use pain as information, not punishment. What weakens the unprepared strengthens those who accept it as instruction. Epictetus taught that no great thing is created suddenly. The Stoic interprets this as a law of nature. Growth is incremental, endurance cumulative. The impatience of modern life conflicts with this truth. People expect results without repetition, mastery without time. The Stoic rejects this illusion. They understand that character, like sculpture, emerges slowly through consistent refinement. Discipline is not dramatic, it is daily. The sculptor does not strike once and reveal perfection. They carve with precision over years. So too must the mind be shaped through persistence. The Stoic accepts this rhythm. They are patient with process but relentless with effort. They know that every act of discipline contributes invisibly to eventual strength. Impatience is a form of arrogance. It assumes the universe should accelerate to personal tempo. The Stoic yields to the pace of nature. They know that the same forces that shape mountains also shape character, slowly, through pressure and time. The person who accepts this pace finds peace even amid struggle. They measure progress not by speed, but by stability. Epictetus advised, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This is the foundation of Stoic self-direction. Identity precedes action. One must decide who they intend to be before behavior can align with principle. The mind, once fixed on a clear vision, gains order. Without it, effort scatters in all directions. Most people act without defining who they wish to become. They respond to circumstance, drift with emotion, and confuse motion with direction. The Stoic begins differently. They declare an internal standard, calm, disciplined, honest, and align conduct accordingly. Every action then becomes a deliberate reinforcement of that choice. Character is not discovered, it is built through daily repetition of identity. To say what one will be requires honesty. The Stoic confronts both strength and flaw without vanity. They design a self rooted in reason, not fantasy. Once defined, they act without hesitation. The gap between intention and execution closes. Each decision reinforces the architecture of identity. Over time, consistency transforms vision into fact. The act of defining oneself gives purpose to difficulty. Challenges then appear as tools to refine the chosen form. If one seeks to be patient, adversity provides practice. If one seeks courage, fear provides material. The Stoic interprets every obstacle through this lens. Life becomes a workshop of becoming, not a battlefield of resistance. Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, Epictetus said, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will come. When the will aligns with reality, peace appears. To resist what already is madness. Acceptance is not passivity, it is alignment with truth. The untrained mind demands control of what cannot be controlled. The trained mind invests attention only in what can be directed, judgment, effort, and reaction. The Stoic redirects emotion from wishing to willing. They wish nothing to be different. They will themselves to respond well. This shift ends conflict between self and circumstance. The smooth life described by Epictetus is not one without hardship, it is one without contradiction. When one accepts events as necessary, each moment becomes bearable. Resistance creates friction. Acceptance restores motion. The Stoic acts as water around rock, flowing, not fighting. This posture turns fate into an ally rather than an adversary. The disciplined person sees every disruption as part of the path. They no longer divide experiences into desirable and undesirable. Everything becomes usable. Joy and pain, success and loss, all serve development. What stands in the way becomes fuel. When the mind accepts this, nothing external can destroy its equilibrium. Epictetus demanded the highest personal standard. Hold yourself to a higher standard than anyone else expects of you. The Stoic does not wait for others to demand excellence. they impose it on themselves. External judgment is irrelevant when internal expectation is absolute. This standard does not rely on witness or reward. It is self-sustained integrity. To hold oneself to a higher standard is to live above convenience. The Stoic chooses difficulty deliberately because it preserves dignity. They demand more from their own conduct than circumstance requires. This makes them reliable under pressure and uncorrupted by ease. The measure of a disciplined mind is consistency when unseen. External validation weakens endurance. Those who depend on applause collapse when it disappears. The Stoic eliminates this dependence by setting private laws of behavior. They act rightly even when no one notices. Their strength is silent, their standard internal. They do not compare themselves to others, but to their own potential. This internal standard transforms hardship into honor. The Stoic no longer asks, "Why is this happening?" but "How can I act according to my standard here?" This question eliminates complaint and invites composure. Every difficulty becomes an opportunity to confirm integrity. The higher the internal demand, the less external chaos can disrupt. Difficulties test alignment between declaration and conduct. To say one is disciplined means nothing until pressure verifies it. The Stoic welcomes this verification. They would rather be proven than praised. Endurance under fire confirms authenticity. It is better to fail honestly than to appear composed while fragile. When the Stoic faces hardship, they recall that no great thing is created suddenly. They endure process with gratitude. They do not expect ease, they expect refinement. Patience becomes strength. In this way, they transcend frustration. The one who accepts time as a tool never feels delayed. They feel prepared. The person who defines their character daily becomes unshakable. They cannot be broken by surprise because they have already chosen how to respond. Difficulty merely activates the plan. Where others react, they execute. Their calm is not genetic, it is trained through deliberate design. Each challenge reinforces the structure they have chosen to inhabit. To want events to happen as they happen is to release the illusion of control and embrace participation in order. The Stoic lives in harmony with nature, trusting that everything contributes to development. Even pain, properly understood, is part of guidance. When one stops resisting, suffering transforms into clarity. Epictetus's philosophy centers on control of will. Everything else is secondary. The external world may change endlessly, but the internal standard remains constant. The Stoic treats this constancy as their true freedom. They cannot lose themselves because they govern themselves. Discipline becomes their domain. The Stoic's life is built on the convergence of patience, purpose, and perspective. Patience accepts the slowness of growth. Purpose defines the direction of it. Perspective interprets difficulty as necessary. Combined, these create serenity under strain. The one who lives this way does not merely survive, they lead themselves. Each teaching of Epictetus forms part of a single system. Difficulty reveals character. Time develops greatness. Identity precedes action. Acceptance dissolves conflict. Standards maintain dignity. Together they describe the anatomy of mastery. The Stoic studies these not as theory but as practice, something to be lived minute by minute. The disciplined mind applies these principles in silence. They do not boast about endurance or patience. They demonstrate them. Their composure is instruction without words. When others panic, they stay calm. When others delay, they begin. When others lower standards, they raise theirs. This constancy commands respect without request. Difficulty ceases to be an enemy when one understands its purpose. It is a natural element of development, not a punishment. The Stoic accepts it as oxygen for growth. To avoid difficulty is to remain incomplete. To face it is to evolve into proportion with potential. The disciplined person, therefore, walks toward challenge, not away from it. The greater the difficulty, the greater the transformation. Easy victories produce comfort. Hard ones produce wisdom. The Stoic seeks the latter. They prefer lasting improvement to temporary relief. When tested, they do not seek escape. They seek expression of their true form. Every hardship becomes an opportunity to practice philosophy in motion. The one who knows what they wish to become is never lost. They measure each decision against that vision. They may stumble, but they do not wander. Direction prevents despair. Even pain serves purpose when placed within meaning. The Stoic walks steadily, guided by internal compass, indifferent to storm. Patience and endurance make the invisible visible. Each quiet act of self-control builds a life of strength. The Stoic does not chase spectacle, they chase substance. They build slowly, unseen, until the structure becomes unshakable. No great thing is created suddenly, including the self. The disciplined person holds themselves to their standard even in solitude. When no one demands effort, they demand it of themselves. When no one praises restraint, they practice it. This consistency creates freedom. They are no longer controlled by praise or fear. Their satisfaction comes from alignment with their chosen identity. In every challenge, the Stoic remembers that difficulty reveals, time refines, choice defines, acceptance aligns, and standard preserves. These are the pillars of self-mastery. Together they form the architecture of peace that endures through chaos. Through them, the individual becomes something more than resilient. They become sovereign over themselves. The philosophy of Epictetus is not to escape hardship, but to master the self within it. Every moment of struggle is proof of life's demand for strength. The Stoic meets that demand quietly, consistently, and without complaint. In doing so, they fulfill the final command: to hold oneself to a higher standard than anyone else expects, and to meet that standard daily, without witness, until character itself becomes unbreakable. Aristotle wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." This is one of the purest expressions of discipline ever recorded. It strips success of mysticism and gives it form, repetition. The Stoic understands that the mind becomes what it practices. Character is not built in moments of brilliance, but in the steady rhythm of daily conduct. Each repetition of virtue strengthens identity until it becomes instinct. Excellence is not achieved, it is embodied. Habit is the structure of destiny. A person does not rise to the level of ambition, they fall to the level of routine. The Stoic studies this law carefully. They know that the future is already being built in the small and consistent actions of the present. Every day is a rehearsal for what one will become. Every thought repeated becomes belief. Every act repeated becomes character. Discipline transforms motion into meaning. To live by habit is inevitable. To live by conscious habit is mastery. Most people drift through cycles of impulse, unaware that repetition is shaping them. The Stoic intervenes in this process deliberately. They design their routines according to principle, not preference. Through this, freedom is reclaimed. The person who controls habit controls fate. Excellence is not passion, it is precision. Passion burns, but precision builds. The Stoic moves with calm regularity. They measure progress not by excitement, but by adherence to practice. The same actions, done consistently and with intention, produce strength that no sudden effort can match. The disciplined life is not spectacular, it is stable. Habit carries moral weight. Repetition is either constructive or corrupting. It cannot be neutral. The Stoic treats every repeated act as a brick in the architecture of the soul. They understand that character decays in the same way it is built, one decision at a time. This awareness turns routine into ritual. The smallest habits become expressions of virtue. Excellence is not created by inspiration, but by alignment. Each habit must serve purpose. Without purpose, repetition becomes mechanical. The Stoic uses reason as a guide to select which habits deserve loyalty. They do not act from Stoic uses reason as a guide to select which habits deserve loyalty. They do not act from convenience, but from clarity. This conscious repetition distinguishes the disciplined from the distracted. To repeat rightly requires patience. The Stoic accepts monotony as the price of mastery. Boredom is not a signal to stop. It is a test of devotion. Every cycle of repetition refines precision. Those who quit when practice feels dull remain trapped at the surface. Those who continue through stillness reach depth. Greatness hides behind repetition. Aristotle's insight removes the illusion of sudden transformation. Change does not occur through a single decision, but through thousands of consistent ones. The Stoic internalizes this truth. They focus less on outcomes and more on consistency. They understand that daily conduct, sustained over years, eventually makes excellence inevitable. The world celebrates results. The Stoic celebrates discipline. They measure success by adherence to method, not the noise of achievement. A single day of control is a victory. 10,000 such days form an empire of calm. In the end, excellence is not a reward, but a reflection of what one has trained themselves to do without effort. Habits are the hidden architecture of identity. They shape thought, posture, tone, and response. The Stoic builds habits of clarity, rising early, acting with order, speaking with restraint, thinking with precision. These small disciplines, practiced daily, create stability that outlasts mood or circumstance. Routine becomes armor against chaos. The undisciplined life is ruled by impulse. The disciplined life is ruled by rhythm. The Stoic creates this rhythm deliberately, using reason as conductor. Each day follows a structure designed for growth. There is time for reflection, for labor, for silence. Through this consistency, life becomes symphonic. Each repetition adds harmony. Habits define thought just as much as they define action. The Stoic watches their inner language with the same care as physical behavior. They know that repeated thought becomes emotional habit. Complaints, envy, or fear, repeated daily, harden into personality. Gratitude, focus, and acceptance, repeated daily, create strength. The mind is trained through what it rehearses. To achieve excellence, one must make virtue automatic. The Stoic aims for a level of discipline so deep that the right action becomes reflex. This is not mechanical obedience, it is alignment perfected. When habit and virtue are one, effort disappears. The person no longer struggles to act rightly, they simply do. This is the quiet grace of mastery. Aristotle's second insight deepens the first. The soul never thinks without a picture. The Stoic recognizes the power of imagery in shaping reason. Thought is guided by visualization. Imagination gives emotion direction. Every internal picture influences conduct. If the mind envisions chaos, behavior follows. If it envisions order, clarity emerges. The Stoic trains imagination to serve virtue. They hold mental images of composure, strength, and discipline. They visualize themselves enduring adversity with calm, rising each morning with focus, meeting insult with silence. This imagery prepares the nervous system for performance. The body follows the mind's rehearsal. Most people imagine failure unconsciously. They see themselves losing before they begin. These mental images drain strength before effort even starts. The Stoic refuses this waste. They visualize endurance, not escape. Their inner imagery becomes a rehearsal for resilience. What the mind repeatedly sees, it begins to believe. Visualization is not fantasy, it is preparation. The Stoic does not dream of luxury, but of endurance. They imagine difficulty to practice composure before it arrives. This method, known to the ancients as premeditatio malorum, steels the will. When hardship comes, it feels familiar. The event may be new, but the mind has already walked through it calmly. Imagination shapes identity. The soul, as Aristotle wrote, thinks through pictures. The Stoic uses this fact consciously. They picture themselves as they wish to become, calm under pressure, unmoved by insult, devoted to principle. This picture is not vanity, it is instruction. The mind requires a model. Without one, it imitates the chaos of others. Habit and imagination work together. The picture directs the repetition reinforces the picture. Together, they create character. The Stoic's life becomes a loop of visualization and execution. They see the ideal clearly, then act it out daily. Each cycle narrows the gap between image and reality until they are identical. The undisciplined person's imagination enslaves them. They feed it with fear, comparison, and fantasy. The Stoic's imagination liberates them. It is disciplined, ordered, and purposeful. They understand that imagination is not escape, it is blueprint. Every image becomes a design for behavior. Every habit builds the structure envisioned. To live without guiding images is to live reactively. The Stoic replaces reaction with vision. They choose their internal pictures carefully. A mind like still water, a body like tempered iron, a heart like balanced flame. These images remind them of composure and proportion. When chaos rises, they recall the image and return to form. Imagination without discipline becomes delusion. Discipline without imagination becomes rigidity. The Stoic unites both. They use imagination to inspire action and habit to stabilize it. This balance keeps life vivid yet structured, creative yet grounded. It turns philosophy into living art. Excellence as habit depends on repetition. Repetition depends on vision. The Stoic knows that the mind cannot act beyond what it imagines possible. To expand ability, one must expand internal imagery. Every act of courage begins as a picture in the mind, a visualization of composure in crisis, of calm in conflict. The body follows where the mind has already walked. The disciplined person treats imagination as sacred. They do not allow random images to occupy their mind. Each thought is filtered through the question, does this strengthen or weaken me? By curating mental imagery, they curate emotion. Anxiety cannot survive in a mind filled with images of steadiness. Peace cannot exist in a mind dominated by chaos. Aristotle's statement unites art and reason. The soul's pictures are the artist's medium. Habit is the sculptor's hand. The Stoic uses both to craft the self. Through imagination, they design virtue. Through repetition, they construct it. The process is ongoing. There is no final sculpture, only refinement. Each day becomes both rehearsal and creation. The Stoic begins with the picture of who they choose to be and ends by measuring how closely their actions matched it. This daily feedback loop transforms philosophy into embodiment. Over time, the distance between vision and execution disappears. The imagined self becomes the actual one. Habits evolve into identity quietly. There is no applause for repetition, no spectacle in discipline. Yet this is where true excellence hides, in the unseen decisions repeated consistently. The Stoic embraces anonymity in practice. They know that greatness built in silence cannot be shaken by noise. The person who rules their habits and imagination rules themselves entirely. They no longer depend on motivation, which fluctuates, but on rhythm, which endures. Their actions are no longer reactive but rhythmic, no longer chaotic but composed. This constancy becomes serenity, the calm confidence of a life governed by order. Excellence as habit removes the need for force. The Stoic no longer struggles to do what is right. They simply do it. The right act has become natural. Imagination sustains it by keeping the vision alive, fresh and meaningful. Together they create perpetual renewal. Discipline does not fade. It deepens. To train habit without image is to lose direction. To train image without habit is to lose reality. The Stoic merges both. They visualize order, then repeat it until it becomes reflex. The result is harmony between vision and practice, between the picture in the mind and the movement in the body. This harmony is the essence of Aristotle's wisdom. The disciplined person understands that every thought repeated shapes the image, and every act repeated confirms it. To control these two realms, inner vision and daily conduct, is to hold dominion over one's life. In this union of imagination and repetition, excellence ceases to be a pursuit and becomes a condition of being. The soul never thinks without a picture. Excellence never exists without habit. The Stoic, therefore, lives with both mind and action aligned. They picture what is noble, practice what is necessary, and embody what is timeless. This is how greatness is built, not in moments of passion, but in the quiet synchronization of vision and discipline, repeated without end.